homeowner called. That's good.
Would you please rise and join us in the pledge? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, Moines County Board of Supervisors, November 23rd, 2021. Are there any changes to the tentative agenda?
I have none.
We have an agenda. Meet with department heads, elected officials. Terry Johnson, Moines County Auditor.
Good morning, we're just keeping busy and continuing with all of the duties in the office.
When you say that without Rilos, I'm assuming you mean some of the duties that are a little more trying than others.
We're continuing.
Good luck, thank you. Colin Gerst, IT.
Just keeping busy like always, nothing new to report this morning.
Okay, thank you. Kevin Glendenny, Des Moines County Sheriff.
Good morning. All is well at the Sheriff's Office. No major news from there. The jail population's all the way down to 60 today. That's the lowest it's been in several years. So we're happy to be able to say that. And unfortunately, we still have 2 out of county just because of some separation and some COVID precautions that we're dealing with. But down to 60, we're pretty happy to report that.
I've been told that some of your clients don't get along with each other.
They don't. Sometimes they don't.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yep.
Rodney Buisner, Maintenance.
Good morning, just kind of finishing up the little project in the juvenile's bathroom, just kind of sprucing it up, so worked on that a few days. Just kind of finished that up. Other than that, just keeping busy. Got an agenda item this morning. Thank you.
Jared or Zach, who would like to speak to land use?
Either one, I think. Things are going well. Got a few subdivisions kind of out for review, or almost out for review, and have a couple of floodplain development requests that we're kind of working through. Other than that, things are going well, and then we've got a work session after the meeting here to go over zoning, subdivision, and airport regulations. So, good times.
Okay. Jared, do you have anything to add?
Nope. You know, it's a number of subdivisions that kind of came in there last few days, so it's working our way through the system there. So I don't have anything else to add.
I saw I came in, there was a stack of
Yeah, I know. It's just sometimes how
My
it
mailbox.
is sometimes.
Brian Carter, Secondary Roads.
Good morning. Not a ton. Our guys are doing all sorts of stuff right now, so we're strung out through the county and working on projects. Just well, I mean, it's been cold, but the weather's been good to keep on working, so that's what they're doing. Doing some ditching, trying to do some slope repair, some stability stuff, and things like that. I think one thing I would note, I sent an email to you guys, and we sent a press release out this morning already, but was contacted by the DOT, and Natalie actually just confirmed it, because I haven't actually seen it myself, that Upper Flint Road did open last night or yesterday late afternoon. That's a little different. They started to waiver on that late last week and thinking it might be next week. So I passed that on, and now I'm here to tell you it's actually open.
If we're gonna be wrong, that's a direction I'd like to be wrong.
Yes, and that's true. So that is open, and that's good to have. I do believe there'll be more work in that area. There's no question there'll be more work in that area next year, and along all these places they have a lot more work to do. So there may be another closure next year of some sort, but it's there and it's usable through wintertime. So that's what I wanted, and I think that's what most people wanted too. It took far longer than it should have, and I'm going to have some follow-up conversations on that topic with the DOT going forward. So, but other than that, just keeping going. So,
Thanks, Brian.
thank you.
Natalie Steffner, Des Moines County Recorder.
Good morning. I have received what I think is the final quote to move forward with the digitizing process from Tyler Technologies. So I have emailed that to you, Tom, I think. So just ready for the next step, which will be moving forward. So I don't know if you guys we need to have a work session to discuss that, or?
Probably just so we're all on the same page, if you
Okay, we can have one final.
get together with Terry and then show us what you've got in a grand total.
Yep. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's gonna help tremendously, getting all those records digitized, not only for the office, but for the public. It's a lot easier access, so it's gonna be a big project. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Natalie. Chris Lee, Conservation.
Good morning. All the staff is out burning today. They've been doing that most of the week. I think we'll see what the weather does, possibly through tomorrow. And then writing grants, trying to push her hard on getting some of the stuff for Big Hollow. We did get notice that our grant application, the match for which was funded through donations for rebuilding the bow ramp at Big Hollow was approved. And so this spring, we're gonna be rebuilding that bow ramp. That thing's crazy steep, and so we're gonna make it a little less steep. Doing that first thing in the spring, planning on doing that, plus doing the sidewalks at the beach and some other stuff. So we got projects already in the works and many more. And if we knock down some of these grants and the donations come in like we think they're going to. So big things happening. There's a lot of grants to do November, December, and then again like February and March. And so trying to get a lot of those cranked out and put in. So that's it.
You might want to clarify for the press what you mean by burning.
I know, you mean that you're doing all your forest maintenance stuff?
Yeah, so most of what they've been focused on is up in Big Hollow, so we've been burning some of our prairie plantings, and then today they're gonna be in one of the timber units right below the campground. We do have plans to do some burning out at Star's Cave, and then possibly up in Lincolnville Woods, and maybe Hunt Woods as well throughout the course of this burn season, kind of defending, so. And that's all geared towards forest management.
Yep.
So, natural resource management.
Thank you. Ken Heineman, Community Services.
Good morning. Nothing new to report today. I'll be meeting with the management team on a Zoom meeting this afternoon, just our monthly meeting where we get ready for the next governing board meeting, and so that'll be this afternoon.
Thank you. Trent Hakelbeck, County Attorney's Office.
Honestly, it's a slower week. We have, with the holiday this year, the courts are closed both Thanksgiving Eve and Christmas Eve, so we have quite a few folks on vacation, and we'll be down.
So they're closed Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so we'll be down to Skeleton staff tomorrow, and, yep. But yeah, other than that, nothing else to report.
Okay, thank you. Janelle Nellie-Longquist, Des Moines County Treasurer.
Good morning, we're just keeping busy, I have nothing new to report.
Thank you. Shanna? Oh, I thought that was Shanna.
Nope.
I'm
No,
sorry.
it's Amber back there.
I was here for something else.
Okay. Did I miss anybody? We got anybody on that? Okay. Correspondence.
I have none.
That was little. The one from the Department of the Army. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Region 7 has approved a Class 1 permit modification submitted by the Department of Army at the Iowa Army Ammunition Plant for the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act Hazardous Waste Management Permit issued to the U.S. Army and American Ordnance LLC with an effective date of 28 September 2018. The permit modification addresses the two following changes. A new document approval page replaces the existing page in the spill prevention control and countermeasure plan to reflect a change in the command of the IAAP. B, include the spill prevention control and countermeasure plan and permit attachment 3-5- contingency plan of the installation hazardous waste management permit EPA RCRA ID number 72138204445 dated 28 September 2018. Please note the new document, approved page, and spill prevention control and countermeasure plan have not been provided with this letter. If you have a request from the public for the document approval plan and/or spill prevention control and countermeasure plan, please notify the point of contact. They will forward your request to the Army Security Officer, who must review all requests prior to information being released to the public in the interest of protecting national security. Point of contact is Mr. Randy Doole. If this affects anyone, this will be on file and available for public review in the auditor's office. You'll probably want to examine this later, won't you?
No,
Sure?
I'm sure that I don't wanna ask the Army to give me something that they are not gonna give me. You guys can barely get them to give you permits for stuff.
Okay, we have a letter from Christian Action. Dear members of the board, as you consider appropriate uses for scheduled COVID-19 assistance, please be aware that Christian Action Incorporated is keenly interested in exploring with you a housing project that will be supported by that funding. Christian Action Incorporated is a legally established nonprofit 501c3 with over 50 years of experience conducting lower income housing and housing related activities within the locality. The group formed following a successful effort by several highly regarded community leaders to assist a homeless family achieve homeownership via a contract sales arrangement. Christian Action Incorporated was subsequently incorporated in 1968 and for many years utilized support provided by the congregations of Zion United Church of Christ and Messiah Lutheran Church to underwrite its activities. The organization has been continually operated until today, primarily focusing on homeownership, but also by financially assisting other local causes such as the Homeless Center. During the 1990s, relaxed borrowing standards, reduced equity requirements, and rising market pricing greatly diminished the effectiveness of the organization's contract sales approach. This forced Christian Action Incorporated to seek out alternatives, which ultimately led us to the state-administered HOME home program as our primary emphasis. Utilization of those funds, in turn entailed the involvement of other partners, including the City of Burlington, Regional Planning, and Burlington Housing Partnership to resolve various technical and administrative issues. These included lead paint identification and abatement, building code compliance, construction specification development and interim financing. These combined efforts resulted in the accomplishment of more than 30 activities. Access to housing continues to be one of the greatest challenges faced by the county's lower income residents. This is because of worsening imbalances in prevailing incomes, the age and condition of the inventory, a lack of affordable rentals, personal debt, and inability of families to accumulate savings and equity. COVID-19 has served only to increase these stresses, but also makes COVID-19 recovery funding an appropriate use to combat those problems. We envision that a straightforward down payment assistance program is highly feasible and would positively impact the community in a most timely manner. However, we have prior experience conducting more complex approaches, which include rehabilitation as an essential feature. Also, during a recent planning session, our board of directors resolved to set aside $50,000 for use as a match to a recent planning session. Our board of directors resolved to set aside $50,000 for use as a match to leverage a grant of at least $200,000 from an outside source. A COVID-19 initiative would align with that commitment. In closing, if the city decides to pursue a possible housing effort, Christian Action Incorporated would like to be included in any subsequent request or proposal process that may occur. We would also be pleased to speak directly to you and/or the city council about this, if invited to do so. Please feel free to contact me. Yours truly, Tom Richard, President, Christian Action Incorporated. A copy of this will be on file and available for public review at the auditor's office. And since it's a request for those funds, you might want to put copies of this in each of the board members' mailbox. For you guys. I had. We'll proceed to the discussion and vote. And Amber, I apologize. You do look a little like Shanna, though. Anyway, we have an ASME contract proposal from Amber Moats, the, yeah, that's fine. What's your title? ASME?
Union representative.
Union representative from ASME.
Sorry, Amber, it doesn't fit back here. Thank you. Sarah, did you want one?
If you have one, that'd be great.
Do you guys have any questions?
I appreciate it, but it's in the shortest form as possible. Would you like me to read this into the record?
It doesn't matter, she's got a copy of it.
Okay.
I mean, we'd like to be able to meet with all three of you again, like we did last time. That's what both units would like. We'd like to be able to negotiate with all three of you. Shane, I know you've got some medical issues, I don't know if you have a procedure done or something.
I'm getting one done, but.
Okay. I mean, I think they'd be willing to, you know, push it out if we
We'll
continue
work
this
on that.
out.
Yeah, we'll work on that, because yeah, it'd be nice. And I like it when all three supervisors are there.
So, that's all I got.
Okay, I appreciate it. Have you had contact with Emily Ellingson, our attorney? Okay, because we sent this to her because she knew we were receiving this. And I believe there's and I apologize, I don't know, there's a timeline that we're supposed to, is it 14 days? Okay. I'm sure she'll be getting back.
It's usually 14 days for the counter, or for you guys as initial, to be exchanged to us. And then I would like to have something on the calendar if we can.
Okay. I'll use that to proposal?
Yes.
Yeah, I will.
And we can extend those timelines. I mean, we can look at that too, as long as the group agrees that it's okay.
And I spoke to Emily, I believe it was last week, and anyway, so she was aware of this, and she was gonna reach out to you, and I know she was busy, but I will touch base with her again and make sure she reaches out.
Yeah, I have tried reaching out to her, but I have not received anything. It's been a while.
Where's it
since-
for her to get a hold of? No offense.
We did, I mean, last time we negotiated, I think we submitted on December 10th. I know it was an issue for you guys with holidays, so I tried to get them in, you know, a couple weeks earlier, so that we, you know, have time to get this done before Thanksgiving, or before Christmas, I'm sorry.
Appreciate it.
Hopefully.
Appreciate that, appreciate it.
Look forward to working with you guys.
Thank you. You have a great Thanksgiving.
You too.
You know, I'll tell you what, I'll stamp these receipts and give them to you, and if you put a copy of those in my box too, that way you'll have a copy.
Okay.
Copies of those to Emily.
Yeah, that'd be great, that'd be great. Okay, we have personnel actions. Personnel action for the county attorney. We have Trent Hankovic, assistant county attorney. 6-month probation period is concluded. So I assume that means you're here now.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I think he came here in case we said no, and he whip up on us, is that right, Trent?
No, no, I'm here.
Move to approve.
Okay. Terry?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane Campbell,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes.
Trent, thanks for everything you've done for us so far since you've been on, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we have the Sheriff's Monthly Report for the month of October 2021. This report will be on file at the auditor's office and available for public review. We have minutes for the regular meeting, November 16th.
Yeah, I just have one question on those minutes, Thomas. It says that accounts payable with a grand total of $1,251,467,000 was resented. And I don't resent that number. I just wanna.
We'll check on that typo.
I missed it. I missed it.
You missed a P. It's resented, so I got a chuckle out of that.
I resented that, Janelle.
It was,
Did you make that motion to accept them?
Do I make a motion to accept?
Yeah.
Even though it's resented, I do.
Terry?
Shane McCampbell,
Aye.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Broker.
Yes. Send anything to Shane, you're gonna have to check the spelling. Or you'll get it corrected at the meeting. Okay, any other business? Future agenda items.
Digitization workshop session. Oh, and next week is, our budget kickoff meeting.
Oh, that's right, at Stars Cave.
You got everything heated out there for us, Chris?
We'll have her warmed up.
Good.
Just no internet.
We're gonna have
Get your emails ready for you.
the bar gonna be open?
Well, I don't think that's in the budget, but.
Oh, okay.
We can talk about a budget.
I'm in favor.
Committee reports.
I had workforce development and the youth meeting. Nothing really to report, still waiting on some information to come back.
I had Chris is not here to give my report for me. We had a, public health meeting and we had a, Bruce from, Regional World Utility Systems came over and gave an update on the swimming pool that they did for Burlington. On what happened over there on that near drowning and their investigation that they sent in the state. So that's about it.
I attended the COBCO, the City County Healthcare Plan Board of Trustees. I was hopeful we'd find out the insurance premium, final whether, increase or whatever it was by the 11th. We won't have that till the end of January. We'll have well marks change, but then we've got a partial self-fund, so that isn't the final numbers. And they're also, we've been gifted with a new the Consolidated Appropriations Act by the administration in Washington DC. I asked him to explain it to me, and I wished I hadn't. I didn't catch all of it, but anyway, it's gonna cost, but Wellmark's still figuring out how much it's gonna cost. They don't know. They're hopeful they will know by the first of January. But there's additional records and that need to be kept. That's all I had. Public input. If anybody from the public would like to address the board, you may email the Board of Supervisors at board@dmcounty.com. That's BOARD@dmcounty.com. Or call 319-753-8203, extension 4. That's 319-753-8203, extension 4. We'll give you a couple minutes to initiate that email or call. In the meantime, does anybody in attendance have any comments or questions? Complaints? Probably have to line up in single file for that. Well, that's good. Things must be going fairly quiet. We hear at least no problems out of the ordinary. I saw you fold your hand. That's good.
If it's any consolation, this morning, my day didn't start off too good. You all know, I drive a school bus. And, at least Kevin didn't get a call this morning.
What do angels do?
Kids
Big
was
angel
good.
do.
They kinda laughed about it, but, I made them happy. I knocked the mailbox down this morning. That's a federal offense, isn't it? I knocked the
He mowed over
mailbox down
mailbox.
this morning.
Come to the joint, man.
I think my entire crew would be incarcerated if that was a federal offense.
And now you're on tape admitting to it.
Postal Service will be in contact.
I think it's only a federal offense if you do it with a baseball bat or something like that.
At least we won't have shouting at you.
The thing about it is, when I dropped the kids off, parked the bus, got in my car, and I dialed the transportation director right away, and I said, hey, I knocked the mailbox over this morning. He said, I know, the homeowner's already called me.
I can attest, they call really fast when you hit a mailbox.
So anyway, that's the way my day started, guys, so watch out.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess before I adjourn, I'll wish you all a wonderful Thanksgiving. Have a great holiday, you and your families. So, and we're adjourned.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you. work session
We got an appointment for litigation.
with Mike Norris, Southeast Iowa Regional Planning.
Hold on,
Oh, I'm sorry,
I hit the wrong button.
I did
There we
that
go.
too. Apparently I hit the wrong Zoom button.
Okay, there we go.
We have a work session between the board and Mike Norris of Southeast Iowa Regional Planning regarding the American Rescue Plan funds and potential use for housing. Mike, could you introduce yourself to the record?
Yeah, Mike Norris, Regional Planning.
Perfect. Floor is yours.
Okay, well, thanks for carving out some time today. This is, I guess, a follow-up to a meeting, I think it was almost exactly 2 months ago. And there's been a lot of discussion, not only in Des Moines County, but all the other counties and really across the country about the ARPA funds, what can you use them for, what should you use them for. And so today, I wanted to talk about some ARPA housing thoughts. And I think this is really just kind of an introduction and maybe the first of a few conversations about housing and ARPA. There's really as many conversations as the county wants to have on this, but what I wanted to do is just introduce some ideas to the board and how those could potentially work to try to stimulate those conversation today and then ones in the future. So we know that housing is an eligible use of the funds, and the U.S. Treasury guidance spells out clearly that housing projects can be funded in different ways. One way is through HUD-identified qualified census tracts, which we do have 2 of here in Burlington, or they can be used for an individual benefit.
Interrupting.
Yeah.
We've been introduced to housing tracts. This is a fairly new concept, at least to me.
Okay.
So there's 2 housing tracts that are inside the city limits of Burlington.
Yeah.
How many are there in the county?
2.
So they're just,
There's not very many qualified census tracts in the whole
so
state.
does it have to be a certain population to become a census tract?
Low income.
Jared,
What?
do you know?
The threshold for, well, that's just how the census splits up the geography of a state or a county. So, well, they're specifically within counties. So I think there's 11. Yeah, 11 in Des Moines County, and I think it's. Sometimes it varies, like they'll have a tract that has a large population, especially large or especially small, but for the most part I think it's around 5,000 that they try to have for each one, so 3 to 6,000 probably.
So on the qualified census tracts, I don't remember all of the criteria, but HUD puts together criteria on, what would be maybe needing of investment more than another tract would be. And so we have, I think, 4 in our entire Southeast Iowa region, our 4-county region, and then across the state, you'll find them clustered more, along river towns, larger cities, maybe, some of the southern tier counties, but there's not very many across the state.
So if I can interrupt you again, so by qualified census tracts, that might not include all the census tracts. Those would be the census tracts that met the qualifications for any particular, because I believe we had census tracts for the broadband.
Well,
When someone's here to talk to us about that, I think, and I believe the qualifications there were such a percentage or so many people that didn't have access to whatever the download and upload speeds were. Okay.
Same geography is different criteria.
Yeah, that's what, okay. I'm not gonna promise it won't happen again, but I apologize for bothering.
You're up as much as you like. So you can use housing, ARPA funds on housing in these qualified census tracts or with individuals for individual benefit. And so that criteria is more flexible, I think. I think the very safe criteria is 80% of low to moderate income. Now, we've seen the state of Iowa rolling out some housing funds for workforce housing tax credits, some rehabilitation projects, some downtown projects. So but the state's hired $1 million consultant to help them figure that out, which we don't have, so. So anyway, you can use housing, and I'm just talking about the different stuff in ARPA where.
So,
it's
does it, because ARPA has, and I know they do for broadband, and I suspect they do for housing too.
Yeah.
So they would have, their qualifications might not be the same as the state qualifications, is that what I would understand?
I think the state is going at lengths to justify why it is ARPA eligible. And so the most conservative guidance I've seen is that anything that's low to moderate income would be ARPA eligible. Because that would be like a blanket qualification that they've been COVID impacted.
So the state's estimates, or the state's, their qualifications would probably be, because they're looking at something that has been, or who knows.
And, they have different connections, than we do, and so they probably have someone at Treasury that they're calling. I don't know, but we'll let them figure that out for them.
But, okay.
So now if they're in one of these pre-approved HUD tracks, then they don't need to meet that 80% low to income. It could be any development as long as they're developing within that tract.
That's my understanding. Yep.
Okay. Do you know where those tracks are, other than, more specifically?
I don't have a map with me
Okay, that was my question.
right now, but we can bring it up and send it over. Or Jared will find it on his phone real quick.
Do you know the numbers, which ones they are?
I don't.
No.
I've got a bookmark in my office.
I would like to, I'd like to see where
Yeah.
where this, when you get around to it.
You bet.
So where do you feel like the emphasis is, Chuck?
Well,
I mean, you've got multi-family housing, rehabilitation and construction, infill, where's, are you coming with a suggestion as far as you're just laying out some stuff so we can take a look at it?
Yep. And, I mean, honestly, Shane, I think it's all needed.
A little bit of, right.
Just depends what perspective you're taking. And so, I wanted to bring kind of 3 different fund ideas. And, at one time, I was thinking, man, if we get to have like $1 million of ARPA split amongst these 3 funds, you could do, these different activities kind of all at one time and raise the level of impact. So the first fund, multifamily housing through rehabilitation and new construction. And then the next 2 are single-family housing. The second one would be single-family housing infill development, and then single-family owner-occupied / down payment. So on the second page, we've got some details about how each one of those could work. And we do variations of these with the Housing Trust Fund and with regional planning through the different grant, finance, and tax credit programs. And so just to dive into some more details here, Fund A, multifamily housing gap finance. This is something new that we brought to the Housing Trust Fund Board that they agreed to try to encourage more investment and also to create more of a application priority when people come here and they want to apply for tax credits or different grant programs. When they have a local partnership or more local funding, they can get higher points, which then increases the chance that they get the money and we'll do the project here. So some components of this housing gap, multifamily housing gap finance is, versus, well, why would you do this? Well, we can address condition and unit availability, and a lot of times the loan to value ratios, if an owner or a developer goes to a bank, you're looking at 75-25. And so the bank will loan 75% of the future appraised value of the project. So then the remaining 25 would be made up from equity, maybe subordinate loans, tax credits, or other things. And a lot of times that 25% is really hard to get, and then we don't actually get the projects done. So this is where the gap finance would come in. And this is exactly like what we do with our regional planning revolving loan funds, where we provide gap finance in partnership with a private lender to help create and retain jobs for businesses. So we could help build new or rehabilitate existing or new units, fund up to 10% of the cost or $250,000 as gap financing with a primary lender. With a subordinate lien position, you could look at a 10-year term. And one of the things I like about this concept is that you can use ARPA money multiple times if you can revolve the principal around.
So, go through gap financing one more time.
Uh-huh.
What you mean by that?
Yeah, so, Tom, let's say that you want to build a new multi-family development, costs $1 million. You go to a bank and they say, okay, we love your project, we're gonna have a pre-appraisal done. They do the pre-appraisal, they look at comps, they look at the market, and they say, hey, we'll loan you $750,000 against this $1 million that it takes to build it. Then you say, well, you know, I've got my 10% equity. They said, well, you need another 15%. And so a lot of times developers will try to reduce the equity up front and then, you know, fill it in with tax credits or incentives or maybe, you know, a bridge loan or a gap loan. And so this would be a gap loan where you would take a subordinate lien position to that 75% that the bank would take. And you wouldn't fill in the whole gap, you'd fill in a part of the gap.
And
Which loan would be superior?
The bank, the 75%.
So, if they were gonna get grant money, it would have to be, you know, you would have to make X number of units or X percentage of units available, Section 8 or whatever the term is for.
There's a lot of different, you know, options
But
out
some, you're gonna agree to make some,
Maybe
such a
it's
percentage,
income,
maybe it's
maybe it's-
100%, maybe it's 50%
Yeah.
of those units are gonna be rented at below average or below X number of dollars or something like that.
Or maybe it's a cost cap per unit or something like that.
You could use some ARPA money for market value.
For what?
For market value?
You can loan your ARPA money
He's-
to create these new units.
He's saying that this loan could be part of the 25% equity that home builder is bringing to the bank, so they get that other 75%.
Right.
The problem is, the county's, the ARPA loan that the county's giving would be subordinated to that purchase money mortgage, essentially. So if that development was to go belly up, we would most likely be out, say, whatever, if it was 100,000, whatever portion it was, because we'd be second in line instead of first in line.
Mike and I talked about it previously more than once. My problem with that would be, we're subsidizing a developer that can go and get a $750,000 loan, or whatever it is. If you're, and I don't want to distort the market, I don't want to give developers an edge over the others. If we were going to do this, you know, I would like to see this go to the bottom of that chain, to the individual that's going to buy a house or something like that, that would go so that you know exactly where all the money's going. If you can get, and I'm not a big fan of a down payment assistance, for the simple reason that that's part of the reason they got in trouble in 2008 and 9, is because you had people in houses that didn't have any skin in the game. And when the value went down such that the payments they were making on it, they owed more. I mean, it was worth less than they were paying on it. They just walked away. I like people to have skin in the game. I don't want to put anybody in a position where, you know, in a house they can't afford. I think that's a disservice to anybody. This is just my opinion, because you're well aware of my opinions anyway. I don't think that's fair to anybody to put them in a position to fail. So I'm not big on giving the money to gap financing or help to developers to, say, we're gonna give money for low-income housing, and we're gonna give it to some established developer, that's fine, we're gonna help them get a loan. And in return, they're gonna offer a certain number of their apartments at below market rate. That doesn't seem to me very efficient or exactly give to the people that I would like to get to. But
So one of the issues that we have in our area is that we have low overall values, and so you can very easily come to a point where the cost of construction, is gonna be, is gonna exceed, the value as compared to the other values, around, and so then the market condition is that it's a disincentive to build. And so if you want more, if you want something different, you have to do something different. At that point, where you let the market ride out, and then, whatever conditions change. And with the gap finance, they still make a payment, there's still security. With our revolving loan program, we take other security that the bank isn't taking. Sometimes you say, hey, in exchange for the gap money, you take out term life insurance with us as the payee. We take a second on other property that you own. So we'll take second on, their UCC, real estate mortgage. I mean, there's a lot of other security that you can take on that. So it's not a gift to them, it's still a loan. And then, and it doesn't make up all the equity, anyway. So then on the, so that's the multifamily and the gap finance. On the, there's also, here laying out a new single-family housing forgivable loan fund, and this can prioritize building infill homes in existing neighborhoods instead of on the edge of town. We've got a lot of gaps in our neighborhood from houses that have been torn down or ones that maybe are vacant that need to be torn down. Something like this could rebuild in those areas. And you could look at a 40% down payment with part of that loan forgiven and then part of that deferred and paid back after the second sale. So you could look to prioritize lower to moderate income, which is 80% of the median income, which would be right around $20 an hour for one person. And you could leverage other private financing. So I'll give you a couple of examples. There's a housing nonprofit that regional planning started called Housing Inc., and that's what they exclusively do is build infill projects. And so we'll approach a city that maybe is auctioning off a lot, or we'll do some kind of a development deal, like if you reduce the cost of this lot to us, then we promise to do, X, Y, Z. And so, what we do half the projects financed in-house with our housing trust fund, and then half we go to banks. So, we just did a project in West Burlington with a Homes for Iowa house, which we spoke for a long time about a couple months ago, so I won't go back to that point. But so we went to the bank, we said, hey, we've got tax credits on this, and then we also assembled a grant, and so we leveraged the bank financing with these two other things, and we put it all together, and we built a house where a dilapidated one once stood. That was demolished. We got a new house and a new owner, and then new value in the neighborhood.
What was the investment on that? Do you remember?
So that project cost us about $189,000.
That's one of the houses, pre-engineered houses or pre-built houses they built in the penitentiary, right? Did they ship them up, is it one piece or two pieces?
One piece.
One piece,
Yep.
They ship them up and set it on a foundation.
That's right. Yep. And then, and we sold that for, I think, $164, $165, and then we're making up the difference with the tax credit and the figure. So really the grant paid for the acquisition and the demolition and the preparation of the lot. So then in this case, you could go back to the homeowner, which I remember, Tom, you and I had talked about at one time. You said, hey, don't subsidize the developer, bring it back to the owner. So So then you could look at, okay, you could bring this down payment assistance at closing, reduce their lien amount, but then, you can have a certain percentage that's paid back after a future sale.
What we talk, I like the idea of going to individuals, either if somebody said, okay, you've got a down payment, but you aren't gonna be able to afford it, we'll buy down the interest rate instead of being, pull a number out of here, instead of paying 5% interest on your loan, we can buy it down, you're paying 3% or 2.5%, something like that, to make the payments less. Or if you've got an infill house, you know, and said, this is gonna take $20,000 to put a roof on it, or whatever it needs, you know, rebuild porch or whatever it is, and help somebody with that. Or even if you said, okay, we're gonna apply this to a down payment, however it was gonna do, somebody do like that. People take care of stuff they own. And and I think that's an important part of any neighborhood, is you don't have to make, but you have a few properties that people start taking care of. It's, that changes the look of a neighborhood. I know the paper for a number of years, they were talking all the time, that they said, well, it's a larger and larger amount of properties in Des Moines County that are rentals. They are, you know, if you can put more people owning property, true, I think that makes a hell of a difference.
Huge, I think.
And if somebody is willing to put some sweat equity in it and said, if you can, you know, we'll do this, you contribute labor or however you want to do it, or loan the money to do that, to improve a property or make it livable, you know, and those are, I know that's part of Burlington's problems, is some of them, they have some of those infill housing. And I'm all, you know, helping those people is different. Just, if you're giving money to a developer, then the developer's making decisions. You know, this project or that project, or just whether large or small, it affects the market, and it doesn't seem to be a very efficient way to get most of the bang out of that buck to the people that could use it the most. And that's just my opinion. And so anyway, I'm not opposed. I think there's ways that do it. And I'm going to guess that if the county wanted to say, okay, we're going to give you some money, or give, however, toward housing, we could probably specify and say, we want our money to go to these purposes. I'm assuming that's not out of the realm of possibility. Okay. I told you I'd probably be interrupting you, yeah. So anyway, Zach's laughing now. He's sat here enough times. But anyway, so and I apologize. I guess I wanted to say that with the board sitting here, so that they knew my opinion, at least what I'm thinking, and whether they agree or not.
We already knew your opinion on that,
Well,
Tom.
everybody knows my opinion on a lot of things anyway. But I it's just not, you know.
I hear where you're coming from. I know where you're coming from.
I think that's the way I understand things, look at things. And I haven't got any problem, you know, reaching out and a helping hand or something like that to people. But you want that help to go to somebody that needs it, somebody that will help, that will do some good, and to be effective. And I don't know, building, you know, additional apartments, you know, with that you get. You said what we're doing isn't working. We've been doing this. Is some of that stuff is saying, okay, we're gonna give you a grant to build an apartment where. Quite honestly, I've lived in apartments a lot of times, and I'm here to tell you, Tom Broker takes better care of his house than he does an apartment he lives in. So I can only speak for myself, but and cared more about it. Then if you're married, you have somebody to remind you daily.
Amen.
Sometimes multi times a day. I had a curtain problem pointed out to me this morning. I'll get off there. I know you've got a presentation and
But Thomas, I like the, I lean more toward the,
Fund
I've got to
C,
lean with, go ahead, Jimmy.
Fund C,
Yeah, I mean,
Fund
it's
C.
repairs homes.
repair home.
To me, I see that being a big problem, and here's the deal, you brought it up, you know how, on a Saturday and everybody's grass is high, and the first guy goes out and cuts his grass, you know what's coming. You know what I'm saying, everybody's, doggone it, I even heard a guy cussing, idiot, Spike's cutting his grass. That's what he said, idiot, Spike's cutting his grass, cause I started cutting mine, Spike started cutting his. Dude, next thing you know, because nobody wants to be seen with the high grass in the neighborhood, it puts the pressure on. And when you have ownership, I think that gives you a little bit more motivation. But yeah, I'm all for. I think there's definitely ways we can use this money, but I'm leaning more toward getting the money into the families, getting some things repaired that maybe they can't do on their own. I think that's phenomenal. Outside of that, I'm open, but I know that, I don't know how much money's gonna be available right now. So I'm saying if it was me, I would just want to, and we did spend some money, which I do think we should. I do like,
So we have done some programs that, is a lot like Fund C, where it can be a down payment only, or it can be a down payment / rehab. And so, the typical applicants we would see are people that are in maybe like a higher expense rental or in a contract sale. And so the contract sales are all over the place, and those are hard to get out of because they require so much down payment. Then if you can't permanently finance, then you got to do another down payment again. But the down payment never really achieves you any equity. And so we see people that I think are bankable, they have good credit, they have enough income, but it's really just, it's going to rent. And so if you can then, if they locate the right house for them, where they can afford that payment, plus the other things like your utilities and your maintenance and some, replacement costs, then that's a great match. And we've seen a lot of success for that. Now, a lot of the homes that are gonna be in that range are gonna need a little bit of work. They're gonna need a roof, do they have working, is there electrical up, there's all kinds of stuff. So yeah, we have done Fund C, we've had some success with that as well. And, I wanted to present kind of the wide range. There's even more things we could come up with, but I figured 3 was maybe enough for one time. And so if there's something that you say, hey, we'd like to hear more about this direction, how would this actually work, or tell me about this detail, we can come back and talk about that in the future too.
Okay.
The reason I sit here and listen to Tom, I agree with Tom on supporting human builders on that. But the reason I like this Fund C, you drive around any small town in Des Moines County, out in a rural area, Burlington, there's a lot of homes out there that need repaired, and some of the people, if they had some of this assistance, would do this, and not be selling these homes and moving into an apartment someplace else, where we have these landlords that will rent that right back out and not do anything to it.
Well,
Anyhow,
Just like that one that Janelle has, where the city keeps going and the couples in their 80s, one has Alzheimer's, and the city has to keep going and maintaining the property. And they're willing to pay for the taxes and they can do that, but they don't have the funds to maintain.
Right. Nobody
the
can afford to have the
property
city
lived
mowing
in
your yard.
for 50 years. But, well, not mowing, but.
Well, I know what you mean.
And yeah, there's people that, you're right, and that's a universal problem, where, so for the county, that's even better to be representative, because you're right, there's places like that in Burlington, Depot, Danville, Middletown, rural community, it's everywhere.
But if there's only 2 qualified housing tracts in Burlington, and they're in Burlington, this money wouldn't be available to use in outside those.
It's an either or.
Excuse me?
it's either or, it doesn't have to be in a qualified census tract. If it is, you don't have to be income qualified. But if it's not an income census tract, then you're looking at
Oh,
an income
okay, I misunderstood you.
I did too, I thought it had to be.
Okay. So,
Jared
in
and I
other
did
words-
look it up, there's census tracts 3 and 4, which is kind of
I
like
need Jared to find it.
South Hill and kind
Could-
of west of
could-
downtown.
Could you email us that?
Yeah, of course.
And so it's by like South Hill from downtown to Angler over to Plain and then
So just
between the railroad and Division.
perfectly clear, if you're outside those qualified census tracts, you're still
You get
eligible
right
as
around
long
it.
as you're below a certain income level.
Right.
80%.
Yep. And then that allows you to, you know, just like Trent said, you can, you know, you're in any town or any area really, you can do work.
My problem is, there's a lot of stuff like this here that's coming to us, it all gearing toward
Burlington.
West Burlington. None of it's going out into Mediapolis, Yarmouth, you know, Middletown or Danville. Everything is in here. We got people out there in the county, we take care of them. They're the ones that vote for us to get in here, we've gotta take care of our constituents. It's that simple. That tract that he just showed us is City of Burlington.
Countywide,
Huh?
countywide.
Countywide, City of Burlington.
Well, those are, again, just to reiterate what he's saying, that's just the eligible census
That's-
tract.
that's
So,
the
so
census
you
tract.
wouldn't have,
You could-
so you wouldn't have to be
yeah.
income qualified there, it'd be open to everywhere else
Yeah.
too, but you'd have to be
Yeah.
income
To
qualified.
meet the same qualifications, somebody that lived in another, and then
Yep.
outside of those, as long as they met the income qualifications, they're just as qualified.
Do you feel like the message gets out past Burlington, West Burlington on deals like this? Do you think it makes it to the smaller communities where they can, okay, I see.
These guys come out, they used to come out to like, we used to have a guy come out once a month to our enhancement committee meetings.
Trent, could you speak up just a little bit?
We used to have a guy from regional planning come out once a month to our enhancement committee meetings, but they come out, I mean, these guys do a good job, I think, of getting out and talking about those specifically. So, yeah.
You know, like in Mediapolis, you know, we help them set up their own housing trust fund, so, you know, that's kind of a known thing, but, I mean, we get calls from everywhere, you know, all the time, hey, I need help, we work with Community Action, you know, we share, you know, applicants, if maybe it's not a fit for us, it's a fit for them, and so there's a lot of back and forth, and, you know, sometimes, almost surprisingly, you know, people call and they say, hey, you know, how's this work? We say, this is how it works, you know, fill this out and send it back, and then, you know, we never get it sent back.
Hey, is Christian Action, are they just strictly building?
I'm sorry, Community Action.
No, we got a
But,
letter this morning.
What's that?
You know about Christian
A
Action?
letter
right?
this morning.
Yeah, are they're
Zach was
just,
here.
they're just new construction, right? Is that all they are, or it's just getting people in homes and?
They're kind of multiple, I think. I think their origins were a lot more new construction, and they were what's called a community housing development organization for a long time. That's a designation through the home program that's HUD funded. And so if you're a CHDO or CHODO, you can access special funds only for CHODOs at the state. So that's what they did for a long time.
CHODO.
And so. CHODO, yeah.
What's that name?
Community Housing Development Organization. I don't make it up.
Thanks, Chuck.
I think he does.
CHODO.
Sometimes I think he does.
Sometimes you think he does?
I'll throw it in there and see if you can.
Just see what's wait, just checking to see what's
So
like.
anyways, so Community Action, like, we've worked with them, with our housing trust fund in the past, we've done down payment. You know, they've come to us, say, hey, can we do some rehabs, but we've done 2 down payment programs with them. And I think they've retooled their board, and they're kind of saying, how do we do, you know, like a different version of ourselves? So I don't know that they're really decided in a direction yet, Shane.
We got a letter from them this morning, actually, it would be correspondence, if you want to copy that. And they referenced working with you in the past.
Yep.
Anyway, they sort of an introduction, by the way, that they might be good recipient for ARP.
Good, yeah, yeah, they do a lot of good work. So would you like us to come back and talk about Fund C or other funds, or is there something else that you might like to hear about?
I'm real interested in Fund C myself.
Okay.
Because like I say, drive around some of these small towns out in the country and some of these places that some people could use some help.
Right.
I've got an interest in Fund C, but also, you know, there's, when you come back to us, if there's a suggestion that you say, hey, here's the hammer down on Fund C, but this may be something that you may want to look at, it's in this other group, you know what I'm saying, that we,
Yeah.
but it's still something that can maybe work with this or something like that, so.
Okay.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Were you gonna say something, man?
No, the single-family housing, that would be the, those one-piece homes that are
It
manufactured.
could be any single-family house.
But that's what I mean, so, but.
It could be a stick build, it could be a modular, it could be a home
No,
style.
no, I'm saying that particular type of construction would fall, those are unsuitable for multifamily. I mean, those are just single-family houses.
Oh, yes.
No, when they've been in the penitentiary, you know, and I forget the name of them.
Homes for Iowa.
Homes for Iowa.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, those aren't rented out, and they're only single-family.
That would be more likely coming under a developer putting them in though, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've had all kinds of people buy those. We've had individuals buy them, you know, to build their own house. We've had developers, also cities, nonprofits also do those, like a development organization, like a small town might have like a community, you know, like, hey, we're gonna try to build out this subdivision, or, you know, build new housing. People, you know, groups like that buy them too. So pretty much anybody that can buy them has bought them.
I think that's probably a good program, I don't know why.
I would listen to more on Fund B and specifically Fund C, but Fund A, I'm not really. I might read into it and find more out about it this time.
I guess, again, we don't know, I know, a number of, counties or jurisdictions have said, okay, we're gonna give 50% of our money to broadband or this or that, done like that. We've committed to the public health facility.
Right.
We're also going to digitize the records, and so we're putting the county itself as a priority. I think that's good for everybody in the county. And we've got some of we'll have some lost revenue, so don't have numbers on this particular subject, and it sounds to me like I'm not alone. This sounds fine, but I would like to see directed toward, you know, single family homeowners. I don't want, and not just sort of saying, here's $25,000 for a down payment, you know, getting them in order to have that they've got some sort of skin in the game, and we maybe bought the interest rate or helped them remodel or whatever to get it. That's kind of what I would like to see. Does that make sense to you guys?
That's, yeah, basically.
That's.
I think that would be money well spent, at least for a foundation. Again, I'm still open, but I feel like as a base, I'm right there with you, absolutely.
That's
money well spent.
And I know there's, you know, talk of workforce housing, and maybe that's more multi-family units. I don't know. This is,
either one.
this would be a more, you aren't gonna open, you know, 80 units, you know, in a couple, 3 years. But if you could put, you know, a few of those residences or something like that in some neighborhoods, you know, the neighborhood starts looking a little bit better. It's gonna look a little better to lenders, it's gonna look a little better to people who are looking to live someplace, and it's gonna look a little better to the people that already live there.
Government's got a lot of good programs. They had one here a while back, well, it's been 15 years ago, for single parents raising kids, a housing program where they went in and helped build it themselves, where they had state workers working with them. I had 2 of them put in my neighborhood, and,
I think that was self-help housing.
what's that?
I think that was self-help housing.
Self-help housing.
Self-help.
It was great. I had people in my neighborhood come and wanted me to sign a petition to get them out of there. You know, we don't want anybody in there like that. I wouldn't sign it. Tell you what, I've got 2 of the best neighbors in the neighborhood.
You're talking about that little brick house in the corner, right?
One of them, yeah.
Yep.
One of them,
I
then
remember when that was going
2 right across the street from it. You know, and these people had a part in building that, their house. That's their forever home they built. And, you know, I'd like to see programs like that where it really helps people. You guys do a good job. I'm not condemning you, Mike. I think you guys do a good job.
No,
you guys do a good
They're
job.
trying, but.
But it's your job to hit all the bases.
Yeah. And it's your job to choose from the bases, I guess.
Well, that's what we're
So happy to come back and you know, we could even give you some examples about, hey, here's some projects we've done in the past, like actual homes, to show you like a before, after, or give you some more detail about what it might look like. You know, how, you know, a lot of times, you know, realtors and bankers, you know, they're your main connection through the down payment, because when people are looking, that's who they're talking to. And that's a lot more efficient for us as a small office, you know, to broadcast to them instead of broadcasting to, you know, 3, 4, 10,000 people. And so, you know, down payment is extremely popular, and we don't get calls for down payment typically until people are pre-qualified by a bank, you know, with their income, their credit score, and their, you know, monthly obligations. And so, I don't get the feeling that, you know, people are just trying to get pushed into houses.
Well, and I understand what you're saying. I wouldn't want that to change. You always want people pre-qualified by a bank. You don't want to come before a committee or something like that. Then you're gonna be, said, okay, this guy or this gal, you know, is financially able, responsible enough that we would loan money.
Yeah.
My only problem with that is with the down payment, is that, they don't have skin in the game if something turns bad, because there was quite a bit of that during, you know, as soon as there were places in Des Moines County, I'm sure you can point to a couple of the same of them too. The minute they were underwater, they just walked away. And,
well, fortunately, you know, with the down payments we've done, it's been a really low default rate, and I think it's, you know, I feel like the process is better now. But, you know, the other thing that we see a lot of is people that are in a contract sale.
A lot of that?
What's that?
A lot of that?
We have a lot of people called that are in a contract sale looking for down payment, but through our housing trust fund and the state money, we're not allowed to do that with the contract. So that might be something, you know, to think about as well. And a lot of times why people go into a contract sale is that their credit's too low to get a bank loan. And so they might be trying to rehab the credit, but, you know, they don't have that score yet, or the interest rate they're offered based on the credit score is really not any advantage to them. So that's another thing that we get a lot of calls about, that we at this time can't really do much about it, except for saying, hey, here's some credit rehab ideas, or people to talk to, like City Hope is doing, I think, some credit education right now, Matt Shin. So, a lot of stories out there.
no argument. So then there's some of those, like I said, you could buy down the payments. You know, still got skin in the game, but going forward, you know, your payments are gonna be X minus this rather than X. There's a term for you, Bob.
say that 3 times without stuttering.
So maybe come back in late January, early February, once, maybe some of the RFQ stuff is in place.
That'd be fine.
Okay.
That'd be fine.
But we got a lot of stuff coming up here in the next month and a half, 2 months here.
Budget's gonna start pretty heavy here in a month.
Yeah.
We're still getting figures back on, well, like Natalie this morning thought she had the final figures on digitizing the recorder's office, so we're still getting figures back on that.
We should have those pretty much now or shortly, don't we, for the, okay.
But we don't have public health building figures yet, so that's gonna be a big,
Yeah, that's the
big thing where what we got left.
And I don't know where Colin's at on the phone system either, so.
Well, we'll follow up after the first of the year and get another time going, but thanks for the time today and appreciate talking to you about it.
Bob, did you, sure anything you wanted to add, or?
I apologize for not being at the front end of the conversation. I think that once we decide on a figure, there's a strong likelihood if we did it fairly quickly meaning January or whatever, that the state would consider putting a substantial amount of money alongside whatever we end up doing. Christian Action, if y'all are familiar with that group, they do a little bit of contract for deed, but they are the contract for deed. And they found that to be very successful. Often with renters, in the limited experience I have, working with people, let's say, in bridges out of poverty, the contract for deed is exploitative and is a way to, have a price on your house that's more than it's worth and avoid rental inspectors and so on. So outside of Christian Action, we might want to be a little careful on that.
We got a letter of introduction, sort of, this morning, which corresponds from the letter of introduction, saying that they might be a good recipient of ARP funds. So I believe, and the gentleman from that organization called me a few weeks ago, and I told him, I said to send us a letter, and so he did, so I read that into the record. And that's public record too, so if you want to see a copy of the letter, Terry could get you a copy.
And that was Christian Action or Community Action?
Christian Action.
Christian Action.
Christian Action, yeah. So if you guys, can you get Bob and Mike copies of that after the meeting?
And I know at one point in time, when I first started practice, there was quite a few rental, or not rentals, they were purchase, but they were contract purchase in Burlington, and what had happened was the property owner had several rental properties, and they started to enforce requirement in Burlington that they'd have parking available. And so they just converted all those rental properties to contract sales with balloons at 3 to 5 years. So they'd have these contract sales, and people would think they're buying their house. Well, they'd get to this 3-year mark, and there's no way they could pay off the rest of the mortgage, and they still weren't able to get a loan from the bank because they didn't have enough paid off yet. So then they would, like he said, it would just boom. They'd be like, well, we can keep you in here and we'll restart it. But they were starting them from basically .0 again, and it was a cycle. So these people would be they were in contract, homes, contract purchase homes for like a decade, and they really had almost no equity.
Didn't realize that it wasn't mortgage, that it was there was gonna be a balloon payment due in the next number of years.
Well, they wanna stay in the house.
They thought the whole time that it kept going, being played down, that it kept being
That's
paid down.
what I mean,
It's offset.
instead of like my mortgage, you pay them $100 every month, and then the equity increases each month a little bit, and you're paying
Yeah.
the interest and a little bit of equity, so your equity increases, and they didn't understand that as what was happening.
Well, that was what was happening, but then they'd get to that 3 year,
Well-
that mark of that balloon,
They wouldn't be able to,
they wouldn't be able to pay it, so they'd be like, well, we'll just redo it. Well, they were starting over every time. And so that does happen.
In other words, they did not
That's
quite
happening.
understand the agreement that they had.
Well, they didn't really have a choice. I mean,
But,
there was the home they were in, it was a home they wanted, and they were in fact.
oh, it was a home they were renting?
Well, they were already in contract sale. But what happened is they'd get to the.
But when they signed the
balloon-
contract, wasn't there a balloon in it?
Yeah. it'd be
Then
like-
nobody had explained how it worked to them?
Well, I don't know that. I mean, I was never involved.
man, most people go into that are kind of, backs against the wall anyways,
Yeah.
because they can't, so I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have to do a truth in lending disclosure on that, do they?
Yeah.
So I mean,
That's
Well,
what I mean.
that's where I would get someone,
There's
so
no-
they could get back, is
they're not
they have to
required
at
to
least give an
explain it.
amortization
Right.
table.
And I'm sure
But
they
not a
don't.
full truth
I'm
in
saying
lending
it's not.
statement.
I'm sure there's people out there that don't, yeah, I have too, that's that's,
With the Christian Action folks, they used it as,
Bob and I apologize, could you speak up just a little bit?
with the Christian Action folks, their mission is to help people own a home. So in their case, it was a tool to help people who, if they get in trouble and struggle, they like you said, lower payments or whatever, and they've got a track record of success with that model. But when you go beyond it, just like this gentleman said, it's a method to take advantage of people, can be. And the limited times that I've seen it in play, which through the Bridges Out of Poverty program, I've seen it a time or two, it's exploitative. It's a way to avoid a rental inspector, a way to get a price on your property
Right,
that's more
right.
than it's worth, things
Right.
like that.
I've always thought ARMs were a little bit like that. Somebody thought they've got a great mortgage rate, and then 3 years later, oops, that's, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want, and you understand
Yeah.
what the advantages and risks are.
I appreciate y'all entertaining this conversation. It's a good deal.
We appreciate you bringing it to us. Yeah, we'd like to talk about this more, have a little better handle on things in a while. And we would like to focus more on the single family housing for all the reasons, right or wrong, that we discussed. So, both you guys agree with that?
And whatever you know what I'm saying?
Single family, I'd still like to know about your, on your owner occupied rehabilitation now.
Yeah.
yeah, and what we tried to, or what I tried to do is to, do things that were already being done, so you don't have to
Yeah.
restart a whole new effort or knowledge. And so, this is, things that have already been done mostly by, regional planning, but, Christian Action and Community Action for that matter. I mean, they're doing elements of this as well. And it is all welcome. I'm not saying, hey, this is the only housing game in town. I mean, we want to be complementary to the other groups out there too. And I've got a, great relationship with Jim Miller, who's the president of Christian Action, visited with their board a few times just about what we're up to, what they're up to.
Good.
We have kind of idea exchanges. And we've done projects together, where they've really said, hey, don't have the administrative capacity, would you guys, do this on our behalf, merge it with your program? Said, sure, happy to do it, we get more done.
It's a collaborative effort, not competitive, and people appreciate the SEIRPC's leadership.
Right on.
And creating a fund, and so our willingness to do that, and so on.
So we'll stay in touch and
Yeah.
Thank you.
That'd be great, and we appreciate the time you spent on this, we appreciate you coming and talking to us, and,
Thank you.
You were interrupted quite a few times, but we can't seem to avoid that habit.
Not a problem at all.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Nice job.
You see it. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Bad man. Good to see you, man.
Oh, I'm not going.
Oh, yeah, you're a man.
Oh, it's good to see you.
We're gonna let them go, because
too.
they gotta be somewhere at 11, I think,
Oh, okay.
if I understood correctly.
We do, basically, they're coming over to look at the boiler downstairs at 11. So if you wanted to come down and look, if you're
I
available.
wouldn't mind doing that, because I missed part of this. I want to see how the setup is, see how they've got it.
Okay, yeah, because you're a subject matter expert, right?
Well, I'm not an expert on it, but I've designed a lot of them.
Sure. Okay.
You guys might have to wait a few minutes.
We can probably use a break after this.
There's a bathroom right across there. The restroom, you'll be good to go.
Rodney, you got the,
So you wanna go through this stuff before we go?
yeah, honestly, this is only gonna take a few minutes, I think.
That's fine.
Alright, so we got the design work from Klinger on the steps, and in that process, he was discussing on the steps, and then
Do
if
they have copies of that?
Rodney?
I don't know.
Maybe it's this thing.
Let me go around copies. I'll go around. You can talk to them.
Hard time hearing?
Yeah.
I can't
The
hear.
thing is only
In the
got
back.
one, if I give it to you, I can't show it.
Is this ours?
Heavy duty service, man, for 14 years, man. My
No,
goodness.
that's,
Shot.
there's,
That's it?
You're on
You
air.
gonna use this?
I think so.
Okay, can you turn it off for a minute?
Trent.
Tom, getting hot.
No, I had a little trouble hearing Trent and Bob, and then when Rodney started to speak, I was having a little trouble. That's better.
In the design work process with Klinger, they want to know whether the steps or go all, or whether the current system went all the way to the curb. So it does, the current system is the steps, and it goes all the way, it does the sidewalk out to the curb. So I'm like, design it that way. So we've got the design work for that, and in that process, learned about the city's Tiger Grant project, got their drawing of what they're gonna do, and they're gonna be tearing out the sidewalk and extending that out into the street, with the 3 lanes out. So it returned just to another problem of, okay, well, if we do this work, we want the sidewalk to match, because they're gonna be doing a specific sidewalk design and all that part of it. So, long story short,
They got tiger paws.
long story short, we really want the sidewalk to match everything that they're doing. Talked with the city, been in email communications, and talked with Nick a couple times, and Jesse once, and then they referred me to another outfit that's working with the, working with the city on that project.
This guy, man.
He knows how to work a copy machine.
That should be easier to read.
Thank you.
So we just got kind of the design of the thing that's sent over. So if you look at towards the bottom and the middle, there's kind of like a square right there. And right here, the square.
Yep.
This square right here. So we're looking at doing kind of like a 2 phases. Do phase 1, have the steps done, and have that square that's actually like it's a concrete precast like box. It'll be valved. Put a valve in there, so we can do the step project, do RFP, get that going, get the steps all done, and then when the city comes in, look at approximately like 2023, come in when they do the sidewalk and the street. They would be okay if we would have like our contractors or work with their contractors.
No. But, okay. So what it is with the Tiger Grant, they don't have specs yet. So we can design to meet their specs and what the sidewalk was gonna look like. So we can't put sidewalk in.
They still don't have specs for the end?
No.
They miss you, man.
So without specs, then we can't design to match and in place to match. So what Claire says, well, we'll just go ahead and do a two-phase project. One phase being putting in the steps in 2022, and then have them put in that single slab of concrete in 2023 to match what they're doing based on the tire grant as per the direction of the city with specs which we don't have. So you've been a contractor, would you bid on a contract without specs?
Not very cheap.
Right.
Yeah, I mean.
It's gonna be a real high bid.
Yeah. So we came back, we're like, look, we'll just put out the bid for phase one. So what we're doing is the steps with the ice melt system, and instead of going in and putting the sidewalk out, which they're gonna have to tear out in a year, we're putting in this junction box. So that way they can plug into the junction box that's there, they can put in the ice melt system. And now at this point in time, from the emails that have gone back and forth, and Rodney's done a great job of this, there's been a lot of communication. It seems like the city is indicating that they will cover putting in the ice melt system and connecting it. However, looking at the Tiger Grant and looking at the funding, we think by that point in time, they're gonna be pretty slim. So, one, we wanna go forward with the project as it is, just do phase one, get the steps done, get the ice melt system in. Two, kind of be prepared, don't be surprised if come
Totally agree.
2023, the city's asking, hey, can we get a little bit of extra money to put in this ice melt system in this slab?
One question or suggestion, I'll bet Rodney's already taken care of it. I would want the phase one contractor, these, what do you call it, this tubing, or whatever, I would want the provision of that tubing, you know, because it doesn't matter what the sidewalk looks like, if they're gonna have 3 foot of this tubing, or you know what I mean, to go across there. I would think that they could give us the materials so that there doesn't have to be a redesign or rebid or anything like that. They give us tubing that is compatible with that connection. Does that make sense, Brian?
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense, because you don't know what changes are gonna be over the next couple of years. You can do
Yeah.
it in a proper environment.
That way, we could give that to the contractor.
And
say
any
this is-
connections,
The connections,
that would
whatever
be
it
part
takes
of
to
it.
connect to it, and then the finish of the sidewalk shouldn't have any difference,
There you
make any
go.
difference, I don't think, to the design of that tubing. We could have that, and they wouldn't have to worry about providing it, they would just
Have to worry about installing it.
install it.
Right on.
All right, perfect.
I was just gonna say that before Tom started saying that. I was.
I saw you were gonna say it, so I thought I'd put you in a punch.
But no, man, right
Got that
on.
written
My,
down.
my concern is, on there, when you're going out that sidewalk, how far are they going up there?
Well, that was part of the concern too, as we were talking about doing the sidewalk ourselves, is with the Tiger Grant, they're gonna go out a couple feet farther. So if we were to try to match what they're doing now,
Yeah.
It's not gonna line up now.
it wouldn't line up, that's correct.
What, are you gonna take a parking or a driving when you
Well-
put a bike lane in?
So is the box, I'm sorry, Jim.
No.
They haven't given us specs, so I'm not sure, but I think from what I've read in the paper, they're putting a bike lane in there, yes.
Make it easier to get to Highway 99.
You know, that's gonna reach out there where you might, on your manifold, you can only have a 300-foot pipe max on one manifold to go out, come back and return. That's getting out there a long way. Unless they've got something that I don't know about, since I've,
That's why you're going down with us here in about 10 minutes.
Good, take measure
I
for it.
get
Take
what you're
it
saying,
now.
and that makes sense. I don't know how many
well,
feet
if you,
of piping we
a
have in
lot of
this.
it's got to do with even though it's got the antifreeze in it, when you get out and past that 300-foot mark on a boiler that's putting out 180 to 190 degree water out there, that water on that line is not gonna be hot by the
It's
time it
gonna
gets
lose
back there, it's
temperature.
going back to the manifold.
I understand, yeah.
Well, if that ends up being the case, then it's a lost cost to do the sidewalk altogether, because you don't have another source of heat. I mean, if what you're describing ends up being, which it very well may be, as is not my expertise, then the sidewalk is a waste of money.
Well,
I mean, that's just, except for however keeps in that range. I would hope that Klinger is aware, they're designing it, but that would definitely be a question to ask, is does what you're planning on the sidewalk meet the design specs like you're describing of the distance from the pump, or from the boiler?
yeah, because he did go through and he did look at the boiler, our existing boiler, so, and this is one change from the project we put out for bid 3 months ago versus what we're about to put out for bid, is he said the boiler's good. We don't need to replace that. We just need to add this basin, like you were talking about, for the you know, what you said immediately they were missing. The basin for the glycol to go in and, yeah.
This system here doesn't have one on there. You need to add that glycol to it, because even though it's a boiler system, you're gonna lose some of that stuff.
Right.
And you've gotta have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
So
that's in the project.
And that's what they, like, if Rodney was gonna fill that up, you know, the way they had it set up, he just put straight water in it, and that's gonna freeze up.
We're gonna dilute it down to nothing but water,
Right.
which is why it
But that's
failed.
what happened, yeah. That was the design flaw. When you read Klinger's report, that was the exact design flaw that they identified.
Because the temperature happened to fall below 32, which never happens in Iowa.
Yeah. Is the junction box on here far enough back to allow the contractor to do that extra 2 foot of widening, I assume? I mean,
Yeah, because it's basically right at the bottom.
Amazing steps.
Okay. What?
Yeah, so we're just kind of right at base there before.
I just
the
couldn't
side.
tell how much room is there forward, I wasn't
No,
sure.
that's only subdivision.
So what we need from you is a north-south to go forward to get this, or we could put it on the agenda for next week if you wanted to have this put out for bid.
I need to talk to Klinger too. I want to talk to him about what their thoughts were. Rodney and I talked about this, and I have not had time, and I will make time. I want to talk to him about like working days and liquidated damages and stuff. Just to make sure that I feel like they're, I mean, it'll be the board's decision, but I'd like to make sure that it's getting put together the way I think it'd be best for the county in the big picture. So I'll do that before you guys have that meeting.
Appreciate
That'd
that.
be great. And where they tie in, if they can tie in, that's a good question for them, is that boiler will support that much tubing. And, you know, some sort of a process by where they could, because they'll have to have some sort of a loop in there so that glycol is running through there until the sidewalk is done. So that will have to be removed. There'll be some sort of an attachment there, you know what I mean, to run something out. And if you're gonna have that, you're gonna need something to halt the glycol.
Well, that's
You
what
see
that
I mean?
junction
Some sort of
box is for, so they'll be able to,
Okay,
to essentially
perfect.
have a pressure clip and,
I think you're
Turn the
looking at
valve.
a combined, a loop that can be separated, my guess is, in the junction box. But really what probably needs to make sure is in that junction box that they put a block out where the loop's gotta go on through and into the sidewalk, so you don't have to cut a hole in that junction box going forward.
yes.
Right, so as long as there's provision for
What they'll do,
that.
they'll go back here, they should have its own loop for the sidewalk to go back to the manifold. And they can even run that loop on down in the sidewalk itself, or in the steps itself, and have them down and bring them in that junction box. But they'll be on their own manifold back there, and they'll have that manifold shut off on that part. And then they'll bring them on over where they return into the return line.
I wonder if that loop would be better ran, and I don't know this kind of system at all. I wonder if the loop that's dedicated to just the sidewalk, you're talking about heat loss, if that's gonna be dedicated just to the sidewalk, I wonder if that loop would be better ran under any installation they're gonna put, that they would put the regular loops on top of. So you're not getting heat loss trying to heat the steps at the same time as it's running down to go to the sidewalk. I wonder if it could be under and then maybe on top of another piece of insulation, so it's heated as much as possible?
If you do that, you put that, they normally use that 2-inch insulation there.
Yes.
When they do that, and then that ground underneath that insulation outside of your perimeter where this sidewalk's gonna be heated, you still got 56-degree temperature under there, so you're not talking about it gonna freeze. It shouldn't anyway.
Well, I'm just saying, all I'm getting is trying to keep as much heat from the boiler to the bottom point where it's going into the sidewalk, that's all I'm wondering.
I know you talked about this a little bit earlier, and I think the concern about that is these walls, the side walls to the steps were put in a long time ago. And if we run into a great big giant ball of concrete underneath there, how are we gonna get through that?
Well, I mean, it'll be a change order and have to basically excavate it out and fill the void. I mean, you just don't know what you're gonna run into.
Yeah, so I think that's the,
I just meant, all I'm getting at is, I just was thinking outside the box, if you're gonna run a dedicated line or 2 dedicated or whatever for the sidewalk, the warmer that material, that fluid stays until it gets into the sidewalk, that helps the cause that Jim was worried about it dropping. That's more up to Klinger and whether that's worthwhile.
yeah, I mean, it's a good idea.
Anyway, so
If we're
you,
running too much.
you'll be part of the conversation with Klinger, ask about working days and some of this stuff you and Rodney can.
I had told Rodney I'd reach out to him and I have not made it happen.
No, I mean, if you could do that, then we have a work session after that's done. But yeah, I think, I appreciate, I know Rodney's wrestled with the city and the Tiger grant, the engineer, all at the same time.
What's that?
It's a bigger copy, that's all.
Appreciate
An
that.
event.
Rodney's handling all that, I just ran copies, so it's all yours if you want it.
Okay.
And then one of these days I'll try and bring you the, kind of their proposal of that Tiger grant, so you guys can really take a look at it and see how that's gonna affect us there or not.
If you need stuff printed out larger format, you're welcome to send it to my email and I'll print it for you on 11x17.
Yeah, he's done a lot of work communicating and going, he went to one of their meetings at night. I mean, Roddy's a lot of work in this.
You guys need to be downstairs in about 3 minutes.
All right, thank you guys.
Be down, I think Jim's coming down, I'll come down.
Yep.
You guys okay if we leave you here? You're gonna get
Unsupervised.
into
I don't know, Tom.
I'll
You know,
watch them and make sure that they behave
well,
themselves.
okay, we're done here. I've got a friend, who's told me, he said, Okay, we have a work session with Zach James and Jared Lassiter regarding the subdivision and zoning ordinances. Gentlemen?
And we'd like to go over airport approach regulation too. if possible.
And airport approach regulation, I suspect that's close enough.
Finally got that cleaned up,
Rest
too.
of it, it's okay.
And we're going to the city of Burlington tonight to talk about it too, so we're trying to see if we can tackle some of
Not a
that.
day for you.
Yeah, all right. Well, what I'd like to do is, we did, I say we, mostly Jared, did a little staff report, and topic 1, zoning subdivision, and I think we'll try and tackle those, and then, I'm gonna do a little history, maybe have Jared go through some of the specifics, or if you guys have specific questions, I know Brian said he had a few, and go through that, and then once we're in a good spot there, we'll try and go through the airport ones if we haven't taken too much time, so. I'm gonna go through a little quick background here. This has taken us a lot longer than we anticipated. It's been almost 2 years since we started this process. But it was,
Turn it here.
are they here right now?
Okay,
You
okay.
need to go back down there?
Hold that thought.
Stop right there. That actually worked, because we didn't really get into anything.
Man, you really got far that time, Batman.
You were doing a nice job.
good?
We're all yours.
All right. Where was that? Okay, so we've been doing this for 2 years. Hard to believe it's been that long, but if you remember, I mean, part of the reason we started focusing on this was just as we were managing this for the first year or two, just noticed a lot of things that were outdated, things that were very confusing, both for us and for other people reading the ordinance or formatting. Things that maybe weren't always customer friendly when people were coming in to get permits and stuff. And then through some of our other research of through like past meetings, I mean, it's been mentioned probably for 5 to 10 years at least, there'd be notes in some of the meeting minutes about specific things that we need to change, or hey, we need to do overhaul, this stuff from the planning and zoning commission, so, or just zoning commission. So, over the last 2 years, we've done been working a lot at this, had at least 3 meetings with the zoning commission, where we've reviewed a lot and had a lot of discussion on several of these topics, a couple individual meetings with some zoning commission members to go over some specific things. We met with Trent on a couple different occasions to talk through some different issues, and then he did a full review too. We've talked to other county land use administrators to go through some questions, some contacts at Iowa State University even to go through some things in their planning school. Talk about some issues, and then we've also reached out to some of the other staff here with specific questions from time to time. Talked to Brian, talked to folks in the health department, maybe even reached out to Terry a couple times on a few things. So we put a lot of time into this. I think through all of that input and feedback, I think we're at a point where we've got something that we feel good about bringing to the supervisors. And it all kind of culminated here at the end of October. We had the zoning commission meeting on October 27th, where they recommended, the zoning commission recommended to the board of supervisors approving the zoning and subdivision ordinances based on a few comments which we put in the document here. So with that, talk about these things. We gave you a list or a link to the ordinance and the map that's been put together, and then outline some of the major changes in here. I guess in a matter of time here, we can go through either all of these things or specific ones if maybe there's something that you had questions about, or I know Brian said he had some specific questions. I don't know if you guys had any specific questions, but we can try and touch on some of these things. Otherwise,
I'm gonna
we'll
stick
take
my
questions.
nose in whenever the board is done. So.
Do you guys have any specific questions or take a time to look through
sure
most of
remember
the
there's
stuff?
you've got something under agricultural land. Isn't there something that if your agricultural land is such a quality or higher, can't be used for
it's-
anything else? Something
Yeah,
to
the
that extent.
CRP. What is
I've got that, I've
It's
got that
75 or
marked.
greater on the CRP.
I've got that marked, it's a little bit later.
Okay, well,
Well,
what's that, corn,
Yes, or CSR, I said CRP,
Corn Super Bowl
CSR,
rating.
yeah, it's the CSR rating,
Yeah, it's trying to restrict the ability to take the prime ag land and turn it into residential development. And I believe that is not being substantially changed.
well, that's
Page
something-
16.
I'm not a big guy on telling somebody what they can or can't do with their property. I mean, if you own prime farmland and it's worth 2 or 3 times as much to sell it for, I kinda hate somebody to say, you could be wealthy, but we aren't gonna let you, because we're telling you how you can use your land. We realize you own it. So I'm not a fan of those kind of regulations.
What's the difference between the C1 and A1 then? On your agriculture?
The commercial one?
That's commercial.
Commercial agriculture
C1.
and the A1 is the agriculture, right?
Yeah.
Which it says restricting private owners and unnecessary due to strengthen relations to floodplains.
Oh, that was
Revert
the
all
C1.
commercial properties to agriculture.
Oh. I'm sorry, so we changed the prefixes, the letters for some of that. 'Cause
Yeah.
Previously it was B1, business commercial, and we had another one called C1, conservation. And so most communities have it as C1 commercial, so that was just, I apologize if it's confusing having that same letter changed like that. But, so that C1 conservation, we're removing that entirely, because that was, when that was initially in there, that was a way to try to regulate sensitive land around, I believe Stars Cave specifically was the prime focus of that, but that was when the floodplain regulations were a lot less restrictive, and so that's one where we felt that, based on the fact that using property lines, sometimes that results in non-floodplain land being unduly restricted, that seems unreasonable, and so that would be changed to, all of those properties would be changed to A1.
How many changes are there? We've got those, just out of curiosity, not to interrupt Jim, but how many total number of those changes? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And these are just the major changes, because there's varying degrees of whether it's sometimes it was taking something that was a informal practice that was never in the code and just making it official that that's the policy going forward. Sometimes it's just adjusting things in a very, very minor way. Others, it's adding a new restriction or modifying an existing restriction.
It might be time consuming. I wouldn't mind going through each one of those changes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I've done it too already, so.
And that's fine, I mean, that's what, if we wanna go through all of them, we're here to go through all of them, I just wanna be,
I've gone-
whatever you gotta come
I've
with.
gone
So if we
page
wanna
by
start at the
page,
top
and
of the
I've
list and
gone
just
through
start going through these, we can
Okay,
do
sure.
that.
Because I'm gonna start right off the bat and ask under, I'm on page 1, but it's in there too. You added C under jurisdiction, and I was wondering why.
Is this for zoning?
Subdivision ordinance,
Okay.
Is that the major change?
that's the only one, that's the only one I was sent. Is that what they're looking at?
Now, we're looking at zoning.
Oh, okay, well then I'll be quiet.
Let's go through the zoning one first, then we'll get to.
I didn't look at zoning because I don't have it, so I can't speak anything about zoning. I only got the subdivision ordinance, so that's what I
We're gonna
reviewed.
go through
Right,
some of these
right.
things. Start on the details on jurisdiction.
Okay. So previously, there really wasn't any, apart from just saying on the cover page that it was 2-mile area, I don't even remember exactly what it said, but it was
How many
very
pages-
vague.
How
It
many
said-
pages is this? 8?
Oh, the whole thing is 8, we got 2, 3 pages of stuff.
But there are 8 pages. Have you got a copy of this, Jim?
No, I don't.
You should have had one, because it was attached to, there was a thing laying on your desk that said Jim.
Yeah.
Your agenda, look on the backside. Attached to that is,
I've got it right here.
is what Jared provided with us.
Yeah, you
Oh, I
should
see,
have,
it's on my desk.
everybody should have got a copy, or at least a digital copy of it.
Was yours in the,
Did you
oh,
email
yours
it to me?
might have been in,
We just sent it to Terry.
here,
Or
I'll go
actually
make
to
a copy
Sarah.
of this. I'll go make a copy of
Here
this.
it is, I got it. Yeah, I guess I do have a copy of it here.
I want a copy.
Did you ever email a copy of this to us before the meeting?
What's that?
Did you email a copy of this to us before the meeting?
We sent it to Sarah and Terry to put in your packet.
It'd been nice to have this.
Mine
We
was
had
in
it
it.
yesterday.
I haven't-
I didn't, no, we thought you were getting a copy of it.
I haven't seen, well, she just said mine would have been in the packet she had.
Okay.
So, and
We thought you guys already got a copy of it last week, so.
no, I haven't seen it.
That's why we haven't seen it.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, we thought you guys already got a copy of it.
We sent it to Sarah on Friday.
Was it Friday? Okay, yeah. Yeah, it was Friday. Yeah.
Anyway, so,
Well, if she'd have got it Friday, then
Well, I'm sorry if you guys didn't get a copy of it, apologize.
we're gonna forgive you this time, Jim. Oh. Anyway, you started talking about, but I do remember, because I remember having this discussion years ago about ag land. About, and I don't remember what the,
Oh, we could talk, we'll get there. I think.
well, no, understood, but anyway, but I remember having, I don't remember.
It hasn't
Bob
come
and
up
Jim
very
were here.
often,
It's
but. yeah.
been a while, and I don't remember exactly what the context was, and,
And I should note that as altered, we had some more exceptions put in there that relaxes that in terms of splitting up of,
When you
farms
get a
that
chance
are-
to put one of those on change desks, you don't need to do it now.
He already had a set.
Oh, he did, okay.
Yeah, he was looking through, we were talking about it a little bit before, when you guys were downstairs.
You know, there's a lot of reading here.
There is.
Go to the third page, Jim, I think that's where they're at.
Yeah, I got 13.
Yeah, no, I think what Jim is saying is maybe we should
I'm
read
saying we
this
should.
rather than sit here and waste your
Yeah.
time.
It's up to you guys, however you
Well,
wanna do it.
I would rather,
And I know
Really
Brian
through
said he
that.
didn't have all of it.
I haven't gone through the zoning, this is the first I've seen of it. I have gone through the subdivision ordinance and would be happy to at least roll through the stuff I see if
Yeah.
you guys want that.
Well, might as well, anything you add now, that's fine, we can give us something to think about.
But that's up to you guys, I'll do whatever.
Well, as long as you have thoughts, we can jot them down here. We'll be going over it again when we reschedule this. But I think it'd be better suited for everybody's time if the three of us read this.
Are you got subdivision stuff to put up there, is that?
I'm on the major changes to subdivision, I have the ordinance too, if we need to look at something specific.
I've
in
got
there.
the ordinance, cause I went page by page.
Okay.
And it's up to the board. Have you guys read anything on the subdivision stuff either? It was a lot of reading. It took me all afternoon to kind of sit
Well-
one side by the other, and Jared's been living it, I know. so.
And zoning is 80 pages or 70 pages, and subdivision is only 30 pages.
So I can just hit my high points if you guys want more time later to do your own reading.
Why don't we, if you wanna hit the high points, that's fine.
Well, if
And,
nothing else, then we've got some notes and we can.
Okay, well, I'll just roll through my stuff and then I'll spend some time on the subdivision stuff the zoning stuff before you have another work session.
Okay.
Send you a copy later.
So Zach, on Article 1, general provisions, page 1. I don't know if you're gonna scroll through it on there so they can see it or
I'm
not.
not sure why it's blank.
Changing it up, aren't you?
It's not showing up on here.
Jim, you might be able to open this zoning, you might be able to open up the subdivision ordinance thing on you guys' iPad if you wanted to. Otherwise, he's gonna pull it up there.
I hope, for some reason it's not showing up.
Now I know your password.
You wish.
yeah, 15.
Dot, 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 dot.
Password 111.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You guessed most of mine,
Password.
and you are
That's
welcome to
a
log in
I
anytime.
made him shake his head. He knows we're not kidding.
If you jump in, you have to do the work you find. So page 1,
Oh, here we go, okay.
you might have to zoom in on that baby.
That's fine,
You found it though.
I don't know why it started showing it, but here we go.
My question is why did you add B1C? Because you note that it must not have been there, you said added a reference to chapter 28E of Iowa Code, and the option of establishing a formal agreement with cities on subdivisions with 2 miles of that
What does
city.
that have to do with the review?
Where's that on this?
It's not on the.
You're gonna have to look up behind you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so in jurisdiction,
C was not in it before,
says
C was
pursuant to
added.
chapter 28 of Iowa Code, the county may establish an agreement with the city to formally set standards and conditions for review of subdivisions within 2 miles of that city's corporate boundaries. I'd have to pull up the city, or the state code and see exactly what it says, but so right now, when we do a subdivision
Yep.
that's in the 2 mile boundary, that person goes to the city of Burlington
Yes.
and submits for a subdivision and submits to us for a subdivision. So the state code allows a process it allows you to come to a 2080 agreement with that entity to kind of formalize a review process. Because to us, it seems redundant that those people have to go to the city and come to us. And it's costing them extra money, so this is just putting in here that if we wanted to, we could have a 2080 agreement with the city that dictates who reviews in certain situations.
Because then there are some small towns that kind of waive their right to review, like Middletown and some of those.
So what we've thought about, and we haven't
Well,
got,
yeah,
we haven't done this yet, but
varies.
someday we may develop a 2080 agreement that would say, in this situation, Burlington doesn't care and it'll come to us. Or in another situation, it's like,
That's
this
the
is
only-
really important to them and.
That's the
then-
only way I love this, because I don't love the thought, the reason this 2 miles there is because people didn't want the city to have any more say over the property than necessary.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with the thought of eventually the possibility of the city having more say of county property. And I don't, efficiency's great, I have no issue with that. I
And
don't
that's
like
the whole
the
purpose
context that
behind
the
it,
city could have more of a
is
say.
to make it more,
Because currently they have to go to the city if they're
and
within the
it
2
costs
mile.
$200 to get a subdivision
And have them review
reviewed
the
and-
subdivision before it comes to us, because that's why some of those subdivisions within that 2 mile will
Yeah.
have the city stamp on it, and then they'll also have the board
And
stamp
it's pretty
on it.
much Burlington and West Burlington that insist on the full review every
Uh-huh.
time, whereas the smaller cities generally
They
just
don't.
I
wait.
thought
always
the 2 mile
waive it.
zone was just in Burlington, I thought it was north and south of the city, I didn't.
Burlington and
zoning.
West Burlington.
For
For
zoning
zoning.
it is, for
For zoning.
subdivision, every
Oh, for
city has the
subdivision, for
ability.
subdivision, okay, so every city has 2 miles.
Every city has the ability to review
Okay.
2
They
miles.
have the ability, but not all of them do.
Yeah,
Now,
understood.
most of the
I
small
would
towns
say the
waive it.
developer that's starting this subdivision should take that upon himself to come to the cities and come to us both. I don't want a 2080 agreement with the city on a subdivision that's going out, and like Brian said, have say-so over some of our stuff.
All this does is say that you can develop a 2080 agreement, it doesn't even,
Yeah.
It's,
I-
well, you
all I
almost
want
need
to do is bring it up is because it wasn't in there to start with, and I just being a county guy, I don't like, the boards change. And if this is in there and you end up with a very urban board, first of all, this is already allowed, whether it's in here or not, right? Because the code allows it.
yep.
So it
So technically, yeah,
it doesn't matter, it's gonna be allowed either way. But just the way I read it, it made me feel like maybe there was a chance that Burlington, for example, ends up doing all the review on a subdivision that's within 2 miles, and that gives me a little heartburn.
That gives me.
But the only way that's gonna happen is you have to have a 2080 agreement that says that, and I don't.
Gives me heartburn too.
But either way, like Brian said, even if
It's
it's
in the
not in,
code.
even if it's not in here, it's in state code.
It's in the
So it was
code, we
just-
aren't encouraging it.
But I just didn't know where it came from. That was-
But we were looking at ways to streamline the process with the city because, number one, it costs people extra money.
Especially
Usually
for
if-
all these
usually if-
minor plats,
usually
minor
if-
subdivisions.
Yeah, like a one lot subdivision, somebody's gotta go to the city and pay $200, and usually they don't
So do
even
you
care.
think the city's gonna,
I think the only
you
time
think
they
the
really
city would give
care,
up their process as long as you just gave them their $200? Because I'm guessing they like the $200.
I don't know if they really care, honestly. I
I
think
don't know.
what they're really concerned about is if something's possibly could be annexed someday and it's a bigger subdivision.
I think you're
That's
unlikely
their
to give
biggest
up any
issue.
power.
All I wanna say, I have no issue with efficiency, and if you can save some money, that's great. I would never ever like to hear the fact that a city ended up, you're talking about maybe the county could just do the review and save the people the hassle going to the city. That's the
Yes.
part I like,
Yeah.
but it can go both directions, and I don't like the other direction.
8 or 9 years ago, I said.
Well, the other direction right now is they go to both of us, so.
Yeah, and I understand, I'm all for efficiency, I just
Time and
wanted
money.
to ask the question.
Several years ago, I was when they came up with the renewal of the Burlington Comprehensive Plan. Anyway, they wanted a representative on the county there. And the city's all about telling you, if you've got a 40 out there and you want to put a house on it, you can only put it in this corner. Or you have to do this or that because it's more convenient for them if they would have to annex it. It would be more convenient for them to run sewer or whatever to it. And I guess I'm way blind, I live out in the county and I got a 40-acre plot out there. If I want to put it right dead center in the middle of the son of a bitch, that's where I want to put it. It's mine.
So I hit that, and that's up to the board what they wanna do with it. All this is up to the board.
At the end of the day, though, like, whether it's in there or not, it's allowed in state code, so.
Yeah.
I don't know if it matters one way or the other.
Incidentally, if we got, there's people that live behind me. I thought everybody in the city had to be hooked up to the sewer, but they apparently aren't.
there's some people that live there and they've got because they were, well, I assume that's what they were doing. They've
Like
got a
grandfathered
septic
in.
system.
For the
Probably
grandfather.
built
I'm
before a
assuming they were
certain date or
grandfathered in before, before the city annexed that. Anyway, it looked to me, I think they were putting in a new septic system. When your septic system needs to be replaced, are you grandfathered in, can you replace it, or do you have to hook up to the sewer?
I don't know, you'd have to ask
I
the
don't know,
city
that's
about
the
that.
Okay, it doesn't matter, I just,
And I
I
don't
didn't
think, actually, now
realize.
you think about it, I don't even know if you have to be connected to sewer, because I know somebody who built a new house kind of off of Sunnyside back there.
Yeah.
And they've got a septic system.
Well, these people are, no,
I mean, it was
it's
just
a
like
fairly
5
nice,
years
nice
ago.
house anyways, anything like that, but I didn't realize that until we saw them out there, they were working on a replacement, I just didn't realize they had that.
Well, and it could be there's no sewer lines available,
Yeah, whatever.
so,
Anyways,
and the city doesn't wanna put it in, so.
alright, what else you got, Brian?
Bottom of page 1, I have 2 comments. One's just a little dinky thing under number 2 towards the bottom. I think you have a parentheses there you don't want on the left side of the paragraph.
Yeah.
Or you're missing a parentheses on the other end somewhere.
Oh, in front
At
of
the
the
end.
O.
Right by the word
Or
or.
between split or
However,
any
any
split.
subsequent
However, any
split.
split, where,
So,
now
right-
maybe I have more than one.
However, any subsequent split, and then there's a parentheses.
Yeah, at the end.
I didn't know, I
Yeah,
just
so
thought
then there
mention
needs
it.
to be one at the end, or that one's removed.
I think so, I think those.
The sixth sentence
Close the
down.
paragraph.
Oh, after parcel, after the word parcel is where it
Yep.
should go.
You're not talking to an English.
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, we'll go after parcel.
It's after
All right.
parcel, that's system, okay.
No.
And then this is just, yet again, the jerk in me, my question on below that for point A, like 2A is what I'm asking about.
Yeah,
Is that mandatory?
such a split.
That's the practice that's been so far, that if they consider, that's how we've been doing it, so that would just be.
Yeah, cause they're more
Would-
restrictive.
Wouldn't that increase efficiency? Why, if we don't consider it a subdivision, I mean, is that basically reading that if we didn't consider it a subdivision, but the city did, that we would then do a subdivision review? Am I reading that correctly? Because we just talked about efficiency. If we don't consider it a subdivision, the city does, why don't you just let them go through the city and be done?
Because it's still in the rural area and it's still considered a subdivision, even though they had them done, so the board would still be signing off on it.
I
But
mean,
I'm
no, if we had a
assuming
case
that,
like
I'm
that,
assuming
but-
in this case that we don't consider it a subdivision. And I'm just asking, because yet again, it's something to do with the city, so I could be off base. I agree with what you just said, Terry, if that's the situation. The way I read this, I read it that if the split's located in the 2-mile jurisdiction of the municipality.
Yep.
And it constitutes subdivision under provisions of the municipality, so Burlington, West Burlington, whoever it is, it's a subdivision in their book. Then the county shall consider it to be a subdivision as well. This doesn't make any sense to me unless it's not considered a subdivision.
Because a subdivision creates a new parcel.
And, and the cities, the first split that you create is
Okay, so
considered a
we're
subdivision.
specifically referencing that first split, the parts of state code there. And that in practice there's been situations where if it's within 2 miles of Burlington, then they wouldn't recognize that. You're creating a new parcel, even if that 40 acre hasn't been split before, they can consider it to be a subdivision.
And I think West Burlington does the same thing.
Yeah.
The first split constitutes a subdivision, where,
Where in
in
our,
our
where we
areas,
don't treat it that way.
if you've got 40 acres and you're taking you're taking the house off of there, we don't consider that.
So why not leave it that way? Why, you were just talking about efficiencies. You can't control the city and whether they call it a subdivision, because I've done a couple surveys where they did subdivisions that wouldn't have been a big deal to us, and the landowner griped because it was a pain in the butt with the city. That's, nothing that can be done about that. Why would we turn around and run it through a subdivision process if we've already said we don't care? Kinda like Tom said, first split out of a 40, you wanna stick your house right in the middle. City says, no, you gotta put your house here. Okay, battle it out with the city, it's not,
Well, they can't.
we don't, okay, well, we don't, I'm just asking the question, we talked about efficiency, why bring them through a county process if we didn't care if the city wasn't already in that 2 mile?
No, fair question.
I'm just asking, again, I'm not asking these to be answered here, it's just stuff I saw when I went through. That's my scenario, I understand what you're saying, I understand that completely.
I'm just thinking logistically in terms of how, so if it's a parcel letter and not a subdivision, there's a process for how that gets recorded going through the auditor's office. It's just, I'm just trying to think of if there were a situation where there were a case where the county considered it to be a parcel letter, but the city considered it to be a subdivision. Just the logistics of having that recorded with where there's city documents, but the county doesn't even review it.
Let's bring this down to a level I can understand. So if the first split, the city would consider that a subdivision. We would not. Does that first split, if you cut out a corner, you know, for a house or something like that, does that create a new parcel number?
A parcel ID number,
Yeah.
tax identification number, yes.
So it would be taxed separately, but we haven't created, but it hasn't been subdivided. We don't recognize it as subdivision, but we recognize, is that what a parcel letter is?
Yes.
Yeah, because they're required to survey it, and then the surveyor will request the parcel letter,
Okay.
and then we'll give them the parcel letter.
The reason we don't consider it a subdivision, I'm guessing here, is just to save them the trouble and expense?
Yeah, because we only consider subdivisions when it creates that third parcel.
Okay, so, but it's just a matter
Which is
of
a state code
convenience,
requirement.
because we don't want to do that to the resident, if they're carving out a niche or a
And that's in the
house.
Iowa code too.
No, that's fine, I'm just saying that's probably okay, I under.
And it's just that
Yeah,
cities, you can, any codes that we have, that the Iowa code addresses, you can be more restrictive, you just can't be less restrictive.
Yeah, so that's where the city might make it a subdivision because they're more
So
restricted.
if I've got my 40 acres out in the county, and I put a corner
you're
in there
bored
for
right up next to
my
the city.
first split, you know, then I just.
They usually
send a
come to
parcel
us
letter.
and we talk with usually Chandra and determine if it would constitute a subdivision. If it doesn't, then it's, you still gotta go get a survey, but just work with the auditor's
Anyway, then you
office.
work, one of you send me a parcel letter, or I send you a parcel letter. Okay,
Yep. Yep.
I didn't understand that before, I think I do
But-
now, maybe.
But in that situation, isn't this saying that even though it's just a parcel letter, it's still gotta go through the county subdivision process because Burlington
with- yeah,
considers
if
it a
it's-
subdivision?
if it's
That is
in the
what we
2
were
mile.
saying here,
That's what
yes.
it's saying, right?
Yes, I believe so.
And
And
for the
I get
record,
what you're saying. here.
I
get
like
it.
our subdivision policy and I like, it helps our office a lot to give us a heads up on stuff. I just don't like it when Burlington dictates things that the county.
And I guess to your point here, maybe this is a scenario where then they don't dictate it and we still get a chance to look at it. But it's not as efficient though.
I'm
It
not
does get rid of
opposed
the
to it, I just
efficiency.
wanted to ask, again, I'm
It
just,
does get out of the efficiency.
it
thing,
didn't
though.
make, it didn't, I wanna make sure I understood how you were
It is
applying.
kind of opposite of what we did just talk
The
about.
efficiency for you or
For the
For
subdivided person doing this.
subdivided person.
Yeah. the
What,
person.
what happens if got my 40 acres, carve out a house, anyway, and so I submit, maybe it's a subdivision for both the county. What if the city says no, and the county said yes, or vice versa?
Theirs is more restrictive, so they would take precedence.
Theirs is what?
More restrictive.
So theirs would, so they basically have veto power anyway.
Yes.
I'm not sure that some sort of battle like that didn't happen down on Mill Dam with beams at some point in the past.
I'm not sure.
I'm not
I
sure,
haven't, we haven't
but-
been involved in any.
No, that's been a long while, but I think there was a subdivision piss and match down there at some point where the city wasn't happy and the county was comfortable, and I think there was some, I don't know how it all, I don't remember, I'm just saying.
But yeah, they
I think it's
do
rare,
have-
but I think it might have happened.
I don't know
They
what it
have
was
essentially
years
veto
ago,
power.
when Mike Fetzer wanted
They
to
essentially have veto power.
put a subdivision up on that Danville Road and 79 out there on that corner where that red barn's at.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And he had that, they wouldn't let him
Every
do
time
it,
we talk
come
about this, I
CSR
learn
ground.
And I don't
That's
know,
great.
that's what's easy for
Huh?
me to.
I was involved in
You was
that.
involved in that?
My life
remember
expectancy
Who was
is
that?
such that I'll learn everything that Jared does.
No, it was our
But I mean, that's the point, is we don't wanna come out in a public
No,
meeting and
well,
have to
that's-
hash all this stuff out.
This is,
And I wanna go through as much as it is to
I
make you
remember
guys
that.
comfortable. I don't
Well, I
want
know what
to, if you wanna go quick, we go quick, if you wanna talk
Well,
through
to
it.
go through it, you know, it would
Follow the
be
regulations.
helpful to spend a little time just looking at it. Some of the questions I
That's
could
all
probably
that
answer
time,
by
you know,
myself if I
I
look at
didn't
it.
have
Sure,
any
I
skin in
guess
the
you don't
game.
have to go through and explain,
I
this
was
is
down
what
there
this is
selling
for,
furniture.
this is what it says, this is what it
I
means.
thought-
If, but yeah, no, I.
Hey, on Ray, page 2.
Okay.
We'll be here all day at this rate.
Hey, we were gonna be here all day sometime.
Barn.
I'll stay as long as somebody
True.
wants to stay.
Alright, what, We're out on.
I got asked to review it, so I reviewed it. Page 2 at the top, I think you mean number 4. I think you need to reference C3 instead of C2. You guys can double check that, but just when I looked, that made more sense to me.
Okay, we had a couple of those
Yeah.
that we found before too.
And you
They were
might already
off,
have
So we can check that.
D, parent parcels. When an existing lot or record is being subdivided, a portion of the original lot may be excluded from the subdivision plat, with the subdivided area extracted from its legal description after the subdivision is recorded. I'm assuming that's all for tax purposes, because I've talked to Terry before on surveys and said, can this be an exclusion?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
the kind of thing that we're talking about?
Yep, so if somebody has that 40 acres and they create a subdivision, but then they still keep that
Yeah.
10 acres for the house or whatever.
Yeah,
So
it's all for
it would be
taxing
this,
purposes.
it would be the northwest quarter or
Excluding.
whatever, excluding the
Yep.
subdivision that was recorded in blah, blah, blah.
Yep, I want to make sure I thought that was what that was for. Bottom of page 2,
Did I get that one right,
I
guys?
think that sounds correct.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm in over my head already.
Sit and listen.
I
Bob-
am.
Bottom of page 2, well, we're not gonna get this completed today anyway, I'm guessing, so you're gonna have time to go back and do some skimming. Most of this hasn't changed a whole lot, Jim, so most of this is just, and some of it are questions that aren't even changing, but since they're putting it in front of me and running it through an ordinance process, I wanna ask the questions. Bottom of page 2, you get into penalties, under administration and enforcement, under penalties. When was the last time the county enforced a penalty? Because I don't remember it. Okay, that's just a rhetorical question. We've got a subdivision sitting right here in my binder that Jared just put in my basket that is exactly the situation where they went and did an auction, because auction companies, in fact, I had that noted here before the subdivision showed up in my basket today, where auction companies are notorious for going and auctioning ground already with
Hasn't
little
even
red lines
subdivided
around
yet.
it that, and then they show up at my doorstep pissed off because there's no sight distance for a driveway, which is exactly what's gonna happen on this split that's sitting in here. I just wanna point this out, that one, I know we're putting fines in here, I've never seen it happen, so I guess I'm curious if that's
I don't know if
something
it's
we're gonna
happening
try
or
to be
not.
consistent about, or if we're, or whether, I don't have a problem with this, just I don't think it's ever happened that I ever remember. And secondly, I wanna note that this is an issue, but the biggest issue normally is with auction companies.
And that has been an issue clear back. Because I
Exactly.
went round and round with Van Syak all the time.
And it's not, Steffes just did it. Now, sometimes, I'll say this, sometimes Steffes will call. I don't understand what the difference is.
And we
they'll-
reached out to them and warned them about this,
They'll call and I
realize you're
send
selling
auction
stuff that
companies.
isn't even subdivided yet.
What happens if I go to the auction and I buy this lot, and I'm assuming I'm gonna be able to put a driveway in
It
or
gets to
something
be
like that?
really uncomfortable.
Well, I'm sure that, I mean, what if you say no? Do I have any recourse against the auction company?
They sell it based on a future survey.
To answer your question, I've never pushed it to that point. We've always been able to find something somewhere, and if I wasn't sure that it was possible and I found out about it ahead of time, those are two really big ifs. If I find out, I knew about this one ahead of time.
We found out about it, I don't remember how
I
we found out.
did
We had
too.
somebody call about it.
All
That's
prospective
prospective.
buyer.
And we actually told them to call you. So
Yeah, I got a
that's
call.
Matt.
Or you get the flyer
yeah,
in the mail.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know where that would go, Tom. If I were the buyer, I'd go back on the seller. So far, we have been able to make things work, but it has been very uncomfortable, and there may be an
We don't like
uncomfortable one
it
coming
either.
on this one. There is a spot, but it just, those spots don't seem to match up with what somebody has in mind. So, it's just one of those things. I got another subdivision, Jared gave me, I met them on site, they're not happy either, they went and had the survey done, and this is another example, they had the survey done for a subdivision, it's just a one lot, farmers letting a kid buy it build a house, and they wanna use the farm driveway, well, because they ran it through the subdivision process, all of a sudden I don't have the power, because I don't take driveways away from people that've been there forever. But now I have the power to say, no, that driveway doesn't safe for what you wanna do, which is to put up a house and have your kids pulling out. So they're not happy, but I'm making them redo the survey. and move the driveway 75 feet to get sight distance. And they're really not happy, but that's what's happening. So it's just, I want to point out that this happens, and I don't think this is ever enforced. And I don't care.
We try
that-
to work with people without getting. to
I do
this,
too.
yeah, So, and, go ahead.
Previously, that's what an instance where the subdivision ordinance previously didn't even specify what a violation of the subdivision ordinance even meant.
So this is
And so I looked at some other ordinances and other county ordinances, and that it always seems to be something to the effect of this procedure for selling land that hasn't been approved as a subdivision yet. So that's new that was elaborated on, because I think that was probably the intent at first, but because the ordinance never specified, that's why I was kind of curious, like, what exactly does a violation of a subdivision
So
ordinance
this little
mean?
section could address all of the auctioneers.
I bet if you used that 30 days in jail a couple times, that
When
would
we
practice.
worked with Trent on streamlining the references to the fees on each of the ordinances so that it all cites back to that same state code item about what the minimum maximum fines allowed by state code.
I mean, I'm a big one in being minimalist in policies you're gonna write. I'm also a big one for not putting stuff in that you're not going to enforce. I just want the board to think about this, because I'm not sure that I've seen the board of supervisors that was gonna jump on board with fining somebody for this, but this happens and it's a pain in the ass. People go do stuff, go get, whether it's a one person, just a farmer or whatever, and you guys see it too.
Yeah, we do.
And like we said, there's an example right here, so I'm gonna keep on going, I just wanna point that out.
I mean, I don't know, our preference is to try and work through something without having to do that. I think it's in here because if you do have to go through it, we need to have that.
Well, what I would love to
ability
do, since this is still in the draft form, I'd love to see you guys send that highlighted to the local auction companies and realtors and say, FYI, we're frustrated with this happening, so we're updating the zoning, the subdivision ordinance in the county, and this is language we're looking at installing. Or after it's done, send it to them and say,
When it's done,
we would like to see this practice ended.
Well, how about if you put in there, somewhere in there, that any auction company selling ground that hasn't been okayed for this first?
Well, the auctioneer is acting as the agent on behalf of the.
Of the landowner.
Of the landowner.
I mean, there's a landowner behind the whole thing that has no idea,
And they
and,
just pay Steffes a fee or whoever it is and
yeah.
take care of this.
So we'll keep going, just in the name of time, I think that needs further discussion in my book to make sure that the board's comfortable with those fees, those fines, and that I'm not saying that it'll ever fall through, because I doubt that it will, but that we're gonna put it in there and leave it there. I wanna make it go out of our way to make everybody aware that we're looking at this.
Yeah.
So, page 4, I wanna note that you need the word, I think you need to add the word subdivision down on hammerhead turnaround. Under that definition, I'd like to see you reference in the very first sentence about the main roadway. The surface extending off from the perpendicular to the surface of the main roadway.
Yeah.
I'd like to see you say main subdivision roadway, because I think that's what you mean. I think you're
Yes.
referencing the actual turnaround.
Yes, yep, that makes sense.
So there's a lot, I'm gonna go back through this, because there's a lot of reference to roadways, and then it bounces back and forth between whether that's a county road type of public road or subdivision road, and I think I caught and everything worked, but that was one I thought needed clarified.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
No.
Page 5, under where it's got right of way for the definitions. I don't know if you mean that to be is that intended to be county right of way, because you say for public use, but then you jump into roads, railroads, sidewalks, and waterways. I thought sidewalks and waterways was a bit strange, unless you're talking about navigable like Mississippi or possibly Flint Creek. If it's considered navigable, then that's a government-owned waterway. But
I guess navigable waterway could make sense.
I just didn't know if you meant if we were still talking subdivision stuff or we were talking county road right away. Or government-owned right away. I wasn't sure, so I wanted to mention it.
It's meant to be just any platted right of way, whether that be a public roadway or a private.
Oh. Well, I don't like it referencing private when it says dedicated and accepted for public use. Because if I'm somebody, I'm thinking that's a county, I see that's a generic way of saying a county road. I'd like to work on clarifying that, I guess.
Okay.
Maybe even two different ones that describe public and private, or I don't know.
Yeah, cause there could be a subdivision that they might do like a walkway or something that would be for use for the subdivision. You know,
No,
if they
no question about it, yeah.
an area that was dedicated within that subdivision, that they might create a path, kinda like a,
I don't know. Yeah.
for them to walk or something like that, that would be just for them, and it's not for their use, but not for county.
Yep.
It's
If
not
we
the county's
simply
right-of-way.
added a reference to the right of way could be public or private, something to that effect, would that?
I just feel like it needs to be, if you're gonna get in the right of way, I'd rather just see it defined, one definition for government owned, or however we wanna call it, and one definition for private or something like that, so there's just no,
Cause we always, that
area,
little
no
statement is
gray
always
area.
added to every subdivision.
yeah. So I just wanted to mention it. And then I wanted to mention there's roadway underneath that, same thing, it gets kind of gray. I'm assuming it says within a public or private right of way, and maybe that's your terminology above, because you reference both of them. Dedicated for that purpose, intended for vehicular access to adjoining property. I'd say more than vehicular, I'd probably say something about use for traveling public, or I'd get a little more generic than just vehicular access, because there's a ton of possible uses of, especially you get into your subdivision roads. I mean, I just leave it as generic as possible.
Dumb question, where, the roadway, the private travel service, does the shoulder of a road count as a roadway?
It bounces back and forth. When you get into my world, it bounces back and forth depending on what aspect you're talking about. I mean, if you talk to me about a roadway, I'm thinking of the actual travel road. But when you get into some design stuff, it is counted as part of the roadway. So it varies depending on what area I'm in.
This applies just to the travel portion
I
of
was
the
gonna
road?
say, in this, it specifically said to the travel service.
Okay, yeah.
And I didn't like, what I don't like is, here, the other thing, I think that roadway thing might be better to put, I think I'd rather see that strictly reference subdivision and not get into public roads. I don't like a definition for public roads. They get used for a bazillion things, and I don't think it needs to be in here. I'd rather see you have a definition for a subdivision road. And I don't think you need to change much, except for just take out within a private right-of-way and not have the word public.
Yeah, that's the thing, just have to be careful to make sure in instances where that term is used in the ordinance, that it doesn't create room for confusion where it's,
I agree.
sometimes it's used for private and public, so we'll look into that to
Yeah,
make
and I
sure.
can look at it too, I just. Only other question I had was within the page 6, I shouldn't say only other, on page 6, do you wanna reference something about Russ, or do you wanna reference something more generic about the county employed or contracted service that reviews subdivisions? You need to go to page 6, Zach. Cause I didn't see it, I might have missed it, but you talk about all this stuff, but really when it comes down to sewer systems, they have the
That's
final
6
say.
on top.
Well, you would,
So I didn't know, I just wanted to mention it,
that
this
would
is
be
not
public
my,
health, wouldn't really matter, because the public health could decide tomorrow,
That's-
we're gonna hire a sanitarian.
That's true.
We're gonna do it ourselves, or it might not be Russ. 5 years from now, they might say, we're gonna go to, Jones Sewer Systems or something like that perform that service. Or it could be the public health where it's contractors or something like that.
and there might be somewhere else, not in in the definitions where that belongs. I just wanted to, you go through and define them. I just didn't know if that was a spot to reference who was actually going to be inspecting / reviewing or something like that. I don't know. Not an area that I care a whole lot about, so just something I saw.
Not while it's working.
I didn't want to read the stupid thing anyway, but here I am.
Going page by page.
Page 7.
Can we go back to that
You must have a hell of a
subdivision?
week.
Man, this was a long afternoon
There where it
yesterday.
says subdivider, any person, form, or is that should be firm, or what is that?
Firm,
Am I
sorry,
just-
that's a
am I-
typo, thanks for noticing.
Okay.
Nice catch.
Jared put that in there to see if you're paying attention.
Okay,
We'll see if Terry's awake.
for now I am.
Alright.
Page 7, it's just a little, I think it's just a, you may already have it, a reference. A, number 2, last line in number 2. I think you mean section B instead of section E, but you'll have to double check.
Thanks for noticing those types of things, because those are the kinds of things where you move stuff around, it gets.
And I could be wrong, please look at it.
We'll check it out.
You said it should be, you think it should be B?
That's just my,
Okay.
my note I made.
No, I'm making a note so we know where to check. Okay. Anything else on this page?
I don't think so. I have a circle at the bottom, but I didn't make a note, so I don't know what I was thinking at this point.
What am I doing with my life?
That's what I was wondering yesterday afternoon. Page 8. Do you wanna know anything about the fee up top? And I'm not sure why I have that noted, but I guess I wanted to note that.
Oh, no, I think we wanna leave the fees separate, so you can do
Fees get
those
set by
ones.
resolution
Okay.
separately.
Then
Thank
that
you.
way, if they change, you don't have to change the whole ordinance.
It just doesn't reference it, okay, it referenced the fee, so they're set somewhere. Do you wanna know, see whatever for, see approved resolution for fees? Or do you want nothing at all? I just noticed it talked about a fee, but it didn't give any information.
I'll make a note, I think in one of these other ones, we note that it's set by resolution.
Okay.
I know it says it
I
in this
think
ordinance.
I think it also says it in there somewhere, but we'll double check.
That's fine. And then the last 4 under those letters, under plat distribution, you got NRCS, you got the fire department serving the property to be subdivided, you got public or private utilities serving the property to be subdivided, and you got township clerks and trustees for the property to be subdivided. I don't know if you've ever tried to communicate with utility companies.
We send it to them.
But you're right here, you're talking about, are you expecting any sort of review signature from these people back? Because if you're not, I'm good with it, but if it's gonna hold up the process, it's a huge
No,
mistake.
we just send it to them, and if we get comment, we
Okay,
get it, if we
okay.
don't.
That's the procedure we already use, it's just. it's-
Nope, and I'm good with that then, as
It
long as
gets-
it's not holding up the process,
gets-
because those last 4 would be a problem.
So it gets sent, that packet you get gets sent to all these same people,
Yep,
but then it only requires a signature from
the packet that's there, the names that are already on there.
whatever the auditor.
I'm
And
good.
that's only for a minor subdivision,
Yeah.
and that states that separately when it's describing
Yeah.
minor subdivision.
So that doesn't, if we get feedback, which is rare,
I'm good with
I get
it,
it,
you
but
don't
it-
even have to go any further.
yep,
I'm-
they get
I'm
the
good
same
with
amount
it.
of time you do.
I just hoped you weren't adding it and expecting signatures,
nope,
because
nope.
I could see you catching a farmer and not hearing back from him forever. because
We rarely
they don't
hear
care.
from them.
Okay, page 9. This is the surveyor in me, item G, towards the top.
Right here, footprints.
Start talking about footprints. Now, here's what I'm envisioning. You're asking somebody that's splitting off an existing farmstead to give you the outlines to a survey accuracy of all the buildings on that property. I feel like we could add a line in here that basically says if there's any building within X amount of feet, we want the setbacks, we want dimensions to all 4 corners of that. I see no reason for a landowner to pay a surveyor or for a surveyor need to get dimensions to corners of buildings that don't fall within or come close to a buffer that you're asking for. I know why you're asking for it, this is very, anything out there. The chicken coop, the whatever, you want dimensions, if I'm reading it that way. And I don't think you probably really want that, but that's kind of what it says to me. So, I just, if there's a bunch of buildings there, they don't really need to do anything other than if they're within a certain distance of the property line, right?
I'm just thinking, I'm trying to think if there's a scenario why. As you're saying, if it's not within this distance, why do you need to know about it?
That's all I'm saying.
Well, it's so setbacks shall be indicated along the setbacks, okay.
So if it's beyond that point, why do you even worry about it?
Yep, that's, cause it's cost.
I'm trying to think. If
And
there's a
you know,
scenario where that
I'm
would be-
thinking in it, this, when I added this, I was thinking more in terms of like larger subdivisions anyway, like it would, maybe an exception for minor subdivisions would make sense, I think.
Let's educate Tom for, take a minute aside to do that.
Yeah.
And I understand, you know, setbacks, I'm sure you grandfather them in. But other than that, if somebody, you know, what are the purposes of a setback? I can sort of imagine, but what are the actual purposes of
Keep them back
setbacks?
away from the right of way, so
What?
when that barn is sitting within the right of way,
The setback is, the purpose is just to keep them away from property lines, right away or otherwise, from what I read.
So you're not getting onto somebody else's property for safety, fire safety, space for utility, space for future access.
It
Based within the public right, I mean, there's
Tom, to
all
be
kinds of
honest with
different
you,
reasons.
it's great in the language, but when it's all said and done, especially with new buildings, nobody pays attention and nobody in here knows until somebody starts complaining. Cause I know of a newer subdivision where the garage the guy built, they finally figured out was over the property line and nobody knew it until the two landowners got into an argument, and one paid a surveyor, you know, and then all of a sudden you know. But the point of a setback would be if he'd have paid attention, met the setback, he would have never been near the property line. I suppose that's the reason for
We
it.
probably had 3 or 4 of those instances where somebody had to go just to property line because they built something over the property.
Or buy off their neighbor or something.
Or, yeah, buy a
I just
property.
wonder if there was one particular reason for setbacks that I might not be aware of.
I think
Certainly
there is.
are.
And I think,
Yeah.
when I was looking to add this in here, I think I was thinking more in terms of like, a larger subdivision for residential where you have one lot that's got a house on it. I know I've seen one like that where they put the existing home on there just as an illustration, so I noted, I did put exceptions here for anything under 150 square feet or non-enclosed accessory structures, so that, I mean, this is something that's, we can revisit as to whether the whole thing needs to be.
I wasn't praising or condoning either one, I was just sort of curious what
Setbacks are, it's terminology that's almost synonymous with subdivisions and this kind of stuff, and like Terry said, it's basically just to keep people back from the lines.
because if you build your house right on the line and the neighbor builds their house right on the line,
I mean, what's goofy about this is that it's talking about existing buildings, which in all likelihood are gonna be grandfathered, so I guess I would almost go as basic as if this whole thing addresses existing buildings, are you just simply wanting them on the plat so someday you can see that it was already there and not the new building that was put in? Is that the logic behind it? Because you're not going to deny a subdivision based on an existing building, it's too close to a boundary.
Right.
So
or if that building burned down, that it would be moved so that it's back
into
behind
the
the
proper
right
spot.
and the
Yeah.
setback.
I don't know, just
There may,
something to
yeah,
mention.
we'll have to think through that. I mean, that's why I was trying to think if there's a specific purpose why we would have to know.
Alright.
That's more, I'm flexible on that, because I think it's just a thing where sometimes it's helpful for context to know where that building is. Again, especially when you got one big property with a house on it, and then they're planning to carve it up for homes, just to know where they're putting the line in relation to that home. But I understand that there's, maybe that's only appropriate in certain situations.
And if somebody has a garage that's on that existing lot that doesn't meet the setbacks and it catches on fire and it burns down,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
need to move it back.
all kinds of random things.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right, right after that, under accompanying material, number 4, you asked for one large size print of the plat, preferably 24 by 36. Now, I have to assume that you're not getting a whole lot of 24 by 36. I mean, the biggest thing you're gonna see from those surveyors, 11 by 17, because that's, unless they're a consulting firm, that's about the biggest a regular printer would be, so.
I'm sorry, I didn't even cross my mind, we're discussing preliminary plats here, so I realize that now. In both of these situations, we're talking only about what would be classified as a major subdivision, so that would be any that does involve multiple lots and new infrastructure. So this isn't even referring to minor subdivisions.
I don't care, it didn't bother me which one I was referring to.
Okay. Well, I just realized that I may have referenced earlier something to minor subdivisions, like, okay.
And then I think we should button this up and do this another time. I think after you've sat somewhere this long, I think I can bring anything up in it, or I can go through it with you guys or whatever, but on this page at least, you're asking for, at least preferably, you say 24 by 36. You're talking major subdivisions, I understand. You're general with it, so I'm not gonna argue with it. I'm just saying I don't think you probably see a whole lot of 24 by 36 stuff roll into your office. And the only people that have that capability is a consulting firm.
So these are only for preliminary plats, which are larger
For major.
subdivisions, and.
But a major can be
and we've-
anything over
and
3
we've-
lots, right?
We've got, we've always gotten a large plat.
And it's like a copy that can be marked up
Something
in
that we
terms of a
can-
group review.
Yeah, because usually there's a group review in those, so we'll get several people together, we got something to
Okay.
mark up.
All right, then you're not rigid on it, so I'm not gonna argue too much, because
Could you print 24 by 36s?
I can, yes.
We can
But
do-
I couldn't tell you the last time the machine was used. The industry's gone to 11 by 17.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just where it's.
And
that's where it's
everything's
at.
emailed where you can view it online
Yes.
and enlarge it,
I mean,
whatever.
even depending on what it is, if it need to be, I mean, somebody can just send us a PDF and we can print it too, honestly.
They're good to work with, so I'm not arguing this. It is going to be, it's an antiquated technology that doesn't get used real often.
When I was in business, that was originally the standard size, but over the years, they started getting smaller.
Yeah, and there are still uses for them, but I would probably say let's call this good and start back up some other time, because I think I might have been the only one that's read it. So, and I didn't enjoy it, but I read it.
And it's been educational for me.
It's been real
I've learned
educational
several
for
things.
me.
So, my notes aren't going anywhere, so that's fine.
So you
Thanks,
guys
guys.
didn't get as far as you wanted to, but.
Let's put you back on for next week. so we
No,
can go to
next
the
week we
airport.
can.
No, we can't.
Nope,
Can't, we
because
have,
we got the budget.
but you still want to go over that airport thing, so.
Tell us what we need to do or when.
We'll see you next year.
Let's see, I'm gonna be on vacation
Not-
sometime, when we're gonna take a vacation.
Not-
I'll be gone, I'm sure though. We still have, we don't usually have meetings between Christmas and New Year's, do we?
No,
What day's Christmas on this year?
25th, same as it is every year.
That was easy, I asked.
Saturday.
Okay, so the four meetings that we will have in
Yeah.
December is the 7th, 14th, 21st, and the 28th.
So we will have one between Christmas and New Year's.
Unless the board wants to waive it if it's not claimed.
And I know sometimes we've waived it.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
28th would be the one, but the 7th and the 21st, you have to have, because those are
Yeah.
claims.
Okay, I'm guessing I won't be here the 28th anyway.
It'd be like a little vacation if we didn't have a board meeting.
I think we'll waive that one.
Yeah.
So you guys can
I might-
decide that on the 21st, and
Okay.
Not that you want to do it, can you set a work session for another day, or does
What?
it have to be on the
I'll
meeting
be
day?
down in Branson.
Yes, they can set them for another day.
We can set
Not that
up-
we want to do that, I'm just throwing out ideas.
What we just, have you guys got any sort of a schedule on this when you're wanting to get through it? Be honest, be
As soon as we-
brutally,
as soon as we
brutally,
can.
brutally honest with me.
So
Yes.
do you want December the 7th or what? Does that work?
Yeah.
I will, just so you know, it's not a big deal, I have to go take a test in Fairfield at 1 o'clock that day. I was gonna leave after the board meeting or whenever I have to.
So that
to go
means you
there.
guys will not get interrupted.
So then we'll.
Yeah,
get to-
you'll be home free.
Brian, I'm wondering too,
I
not
can-
that it wouldn't be good, but I wonder if we just meet and go through all
That's
your
fine.
stuff.
I can stay till 11:30 or 12 that day, but I have to go take that test. So,
You want me to go take it for you?
you're welcome to.
I don't
So,
blame you.
when do you want to have your next work
Yeah,
session?
that's fine if the 7th works.
12/7?
12/7, we'll
That's
see
what
how
it is.
far we get.
That's a historic
It
day.
gives you guys a little more time to read through some
Yeah.
of the stuff.
You know that?
It's a
What's
year,
that?
It's a historic
it's a
day.
year ending in one, too.
Yes, it is.
Meaty.
Pearl Harbor Day.
Pearl Harbor Day, December 7th, 1941. I wasn't here then.
So you guys know, I have jury duty next week. So I have no idea.
Had that one other time?
I have had it one other time, but, so I have no idea what I will be at, and I'm hoping at everything.
I'm sure the prosecution will be quick to snap you up.
That would be. I got excused last time.
I could see that happening pretty quickly, but.
I agree, but I'm hoping they just resolve whatever it is and be done with it, but Becky will be at the budget meeting, but after that, I have no idea what I'll
Good.
do.
It'll
She's
be
the
short.
important one to be there.
You won't be there, will you?
I'll just miss out on pizza.
Who's gonna take her pop for you?
You're gonna have to do it on your own.
Yeah, but we're, okay, I got something that morning, but that's just like a webinar thing, I can miss that, it's no big deal.
Well, the first work session on the 7th could be our digitization, because we won't be able to do that next week.
And that won't take very long.
No. So we could do that, and then that might give him
Just
about
look for
15 minutes,
that printer in there.
additional 15 minutes to get here, so.
Do that what day on the 7th?
No, but I can get
up to that.
That work?
That
What's,
brother?
what's next?
It's not right now, but I
30th?
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I can do
30th,
that.
at,
And I can
you know,
print
if you
stuff
wanna,
off
we
on
could
it
probably
then.
do the
I turned it off.
digitization next week.
I don't think it's gonna take
My
very long.
birthday
We've been
is
through
late.
almost all of it,
Yeah.
except we haven't heard, you know, the final
Hold on,
numbers. She got whatever it was
I
last,
don't
I don't
need it.
think it's a huge
Huh?
part of it.
I don't need it.
Okay.
You don't?
So, yeah, I think we can just
Are you a hacker?
Okay.
sneak that out, because like I said, we've kind of
No, I
have to get
just
through
thought
that
about it. I'm
and
gonna
say,
go.
go ahead with it, and you guys can get on the
Okay,
calendar with that.
okay.
I don't think that'll be long at all.
Okay, I'll go ahead and put
It's
that
been
on
enjoyable, Zach,
for
and
next
Jared,
week.
thanks.
Okay. Did we have anything?
I wasn't,
next week?
I'm gonna be 100%,
then we got
I had
the
no
budget.
idea where this was gonna go.
Oh, yeah, that's,
So,
anyway, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead.
I knew it was gonna be painful, whatever it was, but.
Well, I mean.
I assumed it was gonna be painful, but I didn't
The
know
fifth
how
Tuesday.
long,
Are
what
we,
was gonna
are
be
we
talked
done now
about.
officially?
Well, you let
We're
in
adjourned.
with the
Yeah.
killer, you let in with the mic, I mean, that kills the whole
Maybe on
conversation.